The race for number 10 is down to 8, ahead of the first ballot today.
Good morning. It's bright and early. It's 6 o'clock. It's Wednesday, the 13th of July. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Well, Isabel says it's bright and early out there. Are you bright and early? Stay with us till 9:30. Thank you for your company. We'll try and make it so.
Here's what's leading our news this morning. The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and the former Chancellor Rishi Sunak lead the race to become the next leader of the Conservative Party and the future Prime Minister. 8 candidates now remain ahead of the first ballot later today.
The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has blocked Labour's demand for a no-confidence vote in him and his government. A spokesperson for the PM accused Labour of playing politics by tabling the motion.
The Met Office has issued an extreme heat warning as temperatures rise across the UK. Meteorologists have predicted that this weekend could see the hottest day ever on record, with temperatures perhaps reaching over 40 degrees.
And Heathrow Airport has asked airlines to stop selling tickets over the summer as it struggles to keep up with demand. It comes as the airport announces it will cap the amount of passengers that can fly through its terminals. They're going to be down by 4,000 each day.
But a good idea. Let us know your thoughts. Are you worried about your holidays? Lots of people are. Get in touch, as usual, with all of our discussions. Email us gbnews@gbnews.uk or you can tweet us at gbnews.
We're on the lookout for a People's Champion. We want to remind you about that one as well. If you would just feel inclined and you know someone deserving who you think needs a shout-out, you can nominate them. You can email us. You put the subject Breakfast People's Champion and just tell us who you think it is, who deserves it.
I did check. Yesterday you thought it was because we weren't getting any, and I did check. We've got a stack this high. We've got so many champions.
Why are we keeping asking for them then?
Well, because we've been very busy with the Prime Minister standing down and all the rest of it. We're going to get on top of that.
OK. The battle for number 10. This is the best soap opera in town now, isn't it?
I really like that.
Yeah.
I really like that.
So it's the top story, and the Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, the former Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, the former Defence Secretary, Penny Mordaunt, they lead the leadership contest as Conservative MPs prepare to vote in the first ballot today.
Yes. So 8 candidates remain in the race after Sajid Javid, Grant Shapps and Raymond Chisti dropped out yesterday.
Whoever he was, anyway. Well,
Bless him, yeah.
Bless him. Bless him. His mummy probably said, put your name down, son. Got him nowhere. Candidates that secure at least 30 votes will proceed to the next round. That is tomorrow when the final 2 will be chosen.
Well, let's get some analysis now from the Deputy Editor of CapEx, Alice Denby, regular on the show. Very good morning to you. Gosh, the pace of this, really quite extraordinary and really interesting to see, first of all, Grant Shapps withdrawing himself, and then at the last minute, at the 11th hour, Sajid Javid. And I suppose the old saying is he who wields the knife never wears the crown applies to him.
I think the other thing you say in politics is, the first rule is learn to count, and he clearly just didn't have the MP backers. But I'm sorry to see him go because he had actually one of the most developed policy platforms. He's the only one who was saying anything serious about housing, for example. So disappointing to see him go, but it'll be interesting to see who he now backs.
Yeah, and whether or not that would be a poison chalice. If you've not been able to get the backing of 20 MPs at this early stage, would declaring for another actually hinder their chances, or would he do better to keep his powder dry till the last 2 candidates, perhaps?
I mean, I think his problem is, in a certain faction of the party, he's seen as having betrayed Boris Johnson, and Rishi Sunak obviously has that same problem. So, we've seen Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nadine Dorries be quite mean about Rishi Sunak. They're supporting Liz Truss. And, yes, I suppose Sajid Javid has that same aura about him.
Well, how come Rishi Sunak, it doesn't seem at this moment to be suffering too badly in terms of betrayal?
I mean, I think he's emerging as the sort of sensible candidate. He's got at least 2 former chief whips on his team, so that probably helps. And I think, he obviously did a good job in the pandemic, and I think a certain sort of wing of the party sees him as their best shot.
Safe pair of hands, the establishment figure. Penny Mordaunt's been an interesting character. I actually didn't realise she'd been a Defence Secretary. That passed me by. It must have been the briefest of portfolios. David Davis, I heard him speaking about her yesterday, an absolutely ardent fan of hers, saying that she was a brilliant debater and a great mind and obviously quite a hard Brexiteer. Is she the one to watch, do you think, in all of this?
She's definitely a front-runner among party members. So the Conservative Home website does its panel of members and she's leading the pack. I think what's interesting about her is that she's somehow all things to all people. So she is this kind of hard Brexiteer. She's a very sort of... People think of her as kind of a figure of the right of the party, but then she's very socially liberal on things like trans rights and women's rights and so on. So I think she's a really interesting balance, and she'd certainly be popular with the members.
Would she like our mixed toilets?
I was going to say, I did notice you have gender-neutral toilets here at GB News. I'm not sure Kemi Badenoch would approve.
No, well, we don't approve, but we've got to put up with them. Anyway.
Speaking of Kemi Badenoch, she's got Michael Gove backing her. What else?
She's a really interesting kind of insurgent figure. So she did her launch campaign yesterday, which was very robust, very sort of pro-free markets. She wants to end the Ben & Jerry's tendencies of businesses, which is a slightly unusual thing. I mean, I don't see how it's the government's business what Ben & Jerry's does, but...
Just
what does that
talk us
mean?
through that, yeah.
I think she thinks sort of like woke capitalism, businesses trying to kind of get involved in social issues.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
But I think that's slightly at odds with being a proud free marketeer. And I think the other thing that's interesting about her campaign is she's obviously going in for these kind of woke wars, but then her economic platform is actually much closer to Rishi Sunak. So she's not pledging tax cuts at this current time. She's being much more cautious on that front. So a bit like Penny Mordaunt, she's a sort of mixture. She's kind of straddling two camps.
So perhaps one to watch as well.
Again, very popular with members.
But just again, when we're watching and we're learning and we're beginning to know who these people are, then it's all over, basically, for most of them by tomorrow. It's very brutal, very quick.
Yes, I think, as you said at the top, it's the best drama in town. For people who watch politics, this is kind of what we live for, the sort of the human drama of it. So, yes, as you say, I think we're going to be whittled down to a final two pretty quickly, and then it's quite a long, drawn-out process when they go to the members. So 9th of September, I think, is when we're going to have the new...
Well,
5th of September, sorry.
I suspect it's going to be Nadeem and Jeremy Hunt who might be the big losses soon, you know, the big names to go next. I mean, I don't want to predict, but that would be my guess, just by the way things are going, from what you're saying anyway.
Yeah, it feels to me like Rishi Sunak is the front-runner among the sort of the same kind of MPs that Nadeem and Jeremy Hunt would be fishing in the pool. So I think it will be him and then a candidate sort of seen to be more on the right of the party, which may be Liz Truss, or it may be Penny Mordaunt, it may be Kemi, who knows. And then, as you say, interesting to see who the ones who drop out then row in behind.
Sunak has got such a lead over everyone else at the moment at this early stage. We're going to go to a Rishi Sunak fan, and that is Peter Vaughan. He's a GB News viewer and listener, and he's in Stourbridge in Worcestershire.
Good morning, Peter.
Yeah, good to see you, Peter. Nice day with you.
Hello.
Yeah, we can see that. Looks like a nice day. So, Peter, why is Rishi Sunak the man you want to see leading the Conservative Party?
I just think he is the most capable candidate in this group of 8. He has been, for me, a rising star in the Conservative Party for several years. I remember first seeing him long before he was Foreign Secretary, and he was put out for the usual media round in the morning. And I can remember listening to him and watching him and thinking, this guy is really good. I mean, how many more have they got like this hidden away? And I've been a fan ever since, even with the trauma that he went through with his wife's family and his wealth, etc., etc. It didn't interrupt anything that I thought about him at all. I just think the bookies have got it dead right. They always do, don't they? Rishi Sunak is going to be the leader, in my opinion.
Interesting. Do you think that then he'll be able to cut through in the red wall in the way that Boris Johnson did? Because as so many people have been commentating, he's really that establishment figure, safe pair of hands, experienced cabinet member, very, very clever. But does he necessarily relate to people who have voted Conservative for the first time in their lives and aren't really sure if they want to do that again in the future?
Yes, I do. I think he comes over as a very, very impressive politician, very impressive. I can see him being very prominent on the world stage, actually, and being a popular politician around the world. I cannot see him having any problem. I think he is popular in the shires and in all areas of Britain. And I really don't have any doubts that he is going to, come across to people who don't know him very well. He's going to come across as, well, for me, twice as good as Boris, maybe even more.
Peter, do you have a reserve choice? Do you have a reserve candidate? If it wasn't Sunak, would there be someone else who wouldn't displease you?
Well, it would have been Penny Mordaunt or Mr. Tugendhat, because I really admire their military background, and it's the same with Ben Wallace, who sadly is not running. I'm very impressed by the military background, the service to the country, the way that they just come across as very, very strong, very determined, and not in any way flippant or too relaxed or anything like that. They know there's a job to be done. They want to get in there and do it. And I think it's the same with Rishi Sunak.
Often in these leadership races, Peter, that it's the kingmakers behind the scenes that ultimately hold the keys to number 10. In this case, it feels like Jacob Rees-Mogg, perhaps Nadine Dorries, very important strategic players in all of this, both of whom have lent their support to Liz Truss. It feels as though the right of the party behind her. How concerned would you be about her if she was to beat Rishi Sunak as the Prime Minister?
Well, perhaps this is where I do a hatchet job on Liz Truss, because I haven't really admired Liz Truss at all in any sphere of her political career. I just think she's far too self-centred. I think she's the kind of politician, female politician, who wants to be another Maggie Thatcher. It didn't impress me to see her riding around in a tank again. It didn't impress me when I saw her in Red Square, talking to the cameras. It didn't impress me when Sergei Lavrov made her look a very minor politician in Moscow some months ago. And I've written a little quote down here from the former ambassador, our ambassador to Russia, who said her performance showed the UK as irrelevant, vacuous, and devoid of original ideas. And I thought, yes, that's dead right. So I'm not a big fan of Liz Truss, and I never have been.
You're not going to disagree. OK. Well, tell us a bit about yourself, Peter, because you certainly know your politics. So there you are in Stourbridge in Worcestershire. What do you do, or tell us a bit about your background? Well,
I'm retired now. I went into teaching when I was 21 in 1964. I was trained at a training college in Cheshire called Alsager, which was a brilliant college. I went into teaching in those early days when, you had to have a really strong personality in order to control classes in what was then a secondary modern school. I worked in teaching for 35 years until I retired. I finished my career at probably the two best schools, amongst the best schools in the country, that King Edward's Camphill boys, King Edward's Camphill girls. I was extremely lucky to teach there for the last 3 years of my career, and that was the icing on the cake for me.
What did you teach, Peter?
I trained as a PE teacher and a history teacher, but as the years went by, the joints give up, and I lost a lot of interest in physical education and went into history and the more academic side of teaching. And in fact, when you become a senior teacher, you have to be prepared to teach anything. So I even taught dance on some occasions. I even taught religious education, maths, although I was hopeless at maths. I taught geography, everything under the sun. You had to be prepared to do everything in those days. Yeah.
Well, you sound as if you were a very good teacher, and I'm sure it was a privilege for many people who received your tutelage. So thank you. Thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and thanks for getting in touch, Peter.
Yeah.
See, PE and history, two of my favourite subjects.
Same as me.
Absolutely love them both.
I often thought I would be a PE teacher. And I thought, what would it go with it? And I thought, geography or history.
Yeah. If I think back of my time at school, the PE teachers are probably the most influential because I spent so much time doing sport. But both of us totally love history. You in particular, war documentaries, don't you?
Yes. There's a very good tank documentary on Netflix.
Yeah, you keep going on. Have you watched?
Yeah, and I say to Ruth all the time,
Ruth,
do you want to go and watch this tank documentary? And she goes, no,
Best
thank
chat
you.
up line. She's had in a while.
Busy. Alice, interesting just listening to Peter Vaughan there as a viewer and where his allegiances lie. I mean, he's a man, which always amazes me about our viewers. They really know what they're talking about. He knows the scene. He's not going to have any say in this at the moment because this is MPs that will decide what's going on.
Yeah, it's MPs who are going to whittle down the final two, and it's then going to go to Conservative Party members. And I think, sadly, your viewers are at odds with members. I think Liz Truss will be much more popular than Rishi Sunak among party members. But these campaigns, it's going to be a several-week-long campaign. A lot can happen. A lot of things can come out. People can be really tested in a way that they haven't been before. So things, it's still all to play for, I think. OK. Speak again later, Alice. For the moment, thank you very much indeed.
With the time at 6:15, let's bring you up to date on the latest headlines this hour. And new CCTV footage has been released showing the events of the shooting that took place in an elementary school in Texas in May. The video tragically shows 18-year-old gunman Salvador Ramos crash his pickup truck and enter the school in Uvalde carrying a rifle before police officers arrived.
Low-income households will receive £326 on Thursday. The first payment meant to ease the cost of living crisis. Those who receive government support, such as Universal Credit and Job Seekers Allowance, may be eligible to receive the payout, which will total £650 after a second sum in the autumn. If entitled, the payments will be made automatically.
Twitter is suing Elon Musk for breaking a £37 billion deal to buy the social media platform. Twitter's asking a US court to order the Tesla owner to complete the merger at the agreed share price.
So as we enter summer and we enter peak travel periods and family travel periods, Heathrow Airport has said to airlines, ordered them actually to stop selling tickets for flights over the summer. They've introduced a cap on the number of passengers that it will allow to pass through its terminals. Basically, it means there will be 4,000 less passengers per day than normal. So that's nearly 30,000 less passengers in a week.
Hopefully that might lead to fewer of these last-minute cancellations. Under the plans, 100,000... we've moved on, so I can't read you those details. For more, let's speak to our South East of England reporter, Ellie Costello. She's outside Heathrow for us this morning. Good morning to you, Ellie. Look, they're trying to get a grip of this problem. Is this going to help?
Well, we certainly hope so, Izzy, and good morning to the two of you. This is a painful admission by Heathrow Airport, but probably a predictable one. This is the UK's busiest airport, and pre-pandemic, 80 million people travelled through Heathrow Airport, which kind of gives you a sense of the operation here, the scale of the operation. 80 million people every single year, of course, hasn't quite reached those numbers since then, but we have all seen, haven't we, those pictures of baggage piling up at Heathrow, those long queues to get through security. And if you're watching at home or listening on the radio, you might have even been one of those people, one of those victims of those last-minute cancellations. We've all heard the horror stories in the past few weeks. So this is the plan to try and stop that from happening as the school summer holidays start. So this is a limit on numbers until the 11th of September of this year to try and stop some of that disruption. Well, I spoke to travel expert Simon Calder, who told me more.
We've never seen anything like this decision by Heathrow to say, right, between now and the 11th of September, we are capping departures from Britain's busiest airport at 100k a day. They're doing it because they simply think that the various ground handlers, airlines, everybody else involved in getting you and your luggage from A to B can't cope with more than 100,000 people a day. At this stage, we don't know exactly how the airlines are going to deal with this sudden flight cap, 100k a day, that Heathrow has imposed on departures. But if you are booked, please don't do anything yet. And if you do find out in time that yours is one of the very few flights that will be cancelled, then under air passenger rights rules, you're entitled to be flown to your destination on the original day at the airline's expense.
Well, this is going to affect flights leaving from all terminals, terminals 2, 3, 4 and 5. There isn't a terminal 1, which I know is a little bit strange. But I have just spoken to Simon Calder, and he says that he spent the morning doing test bookings, trying to book flights from Heathrow Airport throughout the summer. And so far, it looks as though every single day he's tried has been successful. So he says at the moment, it looks as though airlines aren't following that advice of limiting passengers on their planes. But that is something that we might see start to happen from today onwards. And he also did say there might have been days that he didn't check, which may have been limited. But the advice is to check your flight before you travel. And if you do find that your flight has been cancelled, then you are entitled to a flight on the same day at the expense of the airline. So do try not to panic. But this move is set to cause more aggravation for passengers that are trying to get out of Heathrow this summer. But the plan is in motion to try and make sure that if you are one of those passengers in that reduced capacity, that your journey through Heathrow is quicker and smoother.
Yes, but the thing is, Ellie, what constitutes a summer flight? So if I want to go from Heathrow to Belfast, is that a summer flight?
Anything from yesterday to the 11th of September will now count as a summer flight. So any flight is subject to having limited numbers on them. So what we could also see, Eamonn, is that if you're looking to book a flight, you haven't yet booked one, that you will be limited to the choices that you have. And you'll also see the price of these flights going up hugely because you'll have obviously more demand and fewer seats to buy. So that is something that people may find if they haven't yet booked their summer flights.
Ellie, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. What a complete and utter shambles. What a mess. And they say on this thing, oh, but don't worry, you're at the airline's expense, they will fly you to your destination. Yeah, but they transfer you to where? Southampton, Aberdeen, where? You know, if you want to go from Heathrow, you want to go from Heathrow. You don't want to be going from East Midlands.
And you wonder why Grant Shapps pulled out mid-afternoon yesterday from the leadership contest when he couldn't get together 20 MPs to support his bid to be leader. Everyone's furious with him because of this mess in our airports. Let us know your experiences. Have you managed to get away successfully? Are you watching us from overseas? Or are you actually feeling like your holiday's being ruined already because you're so worried that not only will your flight be cancelled, it'll be moved all over the place.
Your baggage doesn't
all the joy
turn up.
out of it.
Yeah, it's an absolute complete shambles, and it's all down to greed. It's down to greed with the airports, what they say they can handle, the airlines. It's due to incompetence after the pandemic. Greed from the point of view that people aren't being paid the right wages to do the job, and they've basically said, no, we don't want to do your job anymore, not at that rate.
Fundamentally, when it boils down to it, what is different from before the pandemic? Where have all the staff gone? I mean, I know that obviously a lot of them had to be laid off, but why is it so hard after all these months to get them back in the job?
I think a lot of people have decided they weren't being treated well enough and they weren't being paid well enough. I mean, I know that from hotel staff, where hotel people just can't get.
But is that the effect of furlough? People have got used to being paid for doing nothing.
Could be.
And a lot of people don't want to go back to what's termed hard work. And I'm not trying to be provocative, I'm just asking that question. I think a lot of people are finding it hard to go back into the workplace after the pandemic.
I mean, but you know, we've talked about this before. You know, when I was a teenager, you took up summer jobs in bars, in hotels, in leisure work, all that sort of thing. And now people just don't want those jobs. And as you say, why is that at all? I just wanted to say, you know, later on in the programme, we're going to be talking about the hot weather and, you know, if you work in a kitchen or if you work as a construction worker and, you know, how hard it must be to do your job. And I just had this thought about my favourite food. If you'd have said one last meal, Eamonn.
Yeah, what would it be?
Ice cream, right?
Oh, would it be in a juice or a drink? Wasn't you having a phase about that last
A
week?
Coke float or a...
No, last week you wanted, was it orange juice or something with a Coke, with ice cream?
No, I was having sorbet, orange sorbet with vanilla ice cream, which was like a Joker lolly. It was
That was what-
perfect.
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
carry on.
all sorts of creations. But anyway, but just to shout out, imagine if you work in a seaside town over the next few days and you work in the ice cream shop. The queue must be never ending. You know what that does to your wrist?
Yeah. Tennis elbow.
Trying to get that ice cream out. That's why the Mr. Whippy stuff, the soft stuff, that's easy. But getting the hard stuff
Oh,
out
they
of
won't
the
mind.
tub.
They'll be coining it in. It'll be absolutely
So we're
brilliant
thinking of you
business.
if you're working in an ice cream shop, OK?
Yeah, let us know if you're absolutely enjoying and coining it in during the hot weather, because we always focus on the tough jobs, but there's some good sides to this as well.
So, as the Britain braces itself for those temperatures, those record-breaking temperatures, we're going to be talking to a meteorologist about why it's warming up and who it will affect. But first, speaking of meteorologists, here's your forecast.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update. Plenty of sunshine around for the next couple of days. Not as hot as the last few days, but we could see temperatures rising further as we head into the weekend. High pressure has been dominating, one area pushing away, but another one moving back in. But it's moving back in behind this cold front that's been drifting south, and that will introduce slightly cooler conditions for most of us today. It's a little fresher out there this morning, still very warm and humid in the south. But further north, we've got a fairly brisk wind continuing to bring some showers over the Highlands and the Northern Isles and the Western Isles. Maybe one or two showers getting into southwest Scotland during the day too. But for most places, dry and fine after the early cloud tending to break up across the south. Here, still pretty warm, 27, 28 Celsius, but not the 30 or more we've seen over recent days. And further north, generally fresher, more comfortable conditions, less humid, temperatures in the high teens, low 20s. Through this evening, we'll see a bit more cloud spilling into northwest England and Northern Ireland, with maybe one or two showers here. We'll keep some showers in the far north of Scotland as well, but further south it does stay dry. It'll be a cooler night again. Still temperatures staying in the teens, but lower than the night just gone. Into Thursday, and it's a fine summer's day across southern England, South Wales, plenty of sunshine. Further north, a bit more cloud to come tomorrow over particularly northwest England, western Scotland and Northern Ireland, where there will be some outbreaks of rain at times. Much of eastern Scotland and to the east of the Pennines staying dry and bright. Plenty of sunshine, as I say, in the south, and we've lost the heat, so temperatures, although potentially getting into the high 20s across the southeast, mostly high teens, low 20s. So close to average for the time of year, and it will feel that much fresher than the past few days. However, the heat is expected to build again through this weekend, and the Met Office do have an extreme heat warning in place covering both Sunday and Monday.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
On radio,
On digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
we embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Still to come on today's programme, Twitter suing Elon Musk. He seems the right character, doesn't he? Somewhat eccentric, doesn't he?
I'm on the edge of my seat there.
Because he could sue you. He's got the money to sue you.
He's got the money, could take me down.
Yeah. So he says, right, I'm going to pay you $44 billion for Twitter. And then he said, nah, do you know what? I think I'll not bother.
I'll not bother, and I'll also just trash it while I'm at it.
And they don't like that. So anyway, we're going to LA just before 7 to find out what's happening in that world, the world's richest man.
You know how many kids he's got?
No.
Take a wild guess. Just guess.
3.
More.
5.
More.
7.
More.
Not 9.
9 children.
9.
Bit of trivia for you. Anyway, also coming up in the next hour, as the heat wave continues in large parts of the country, we're meeting some of the people working in some of the hottest jobs. First up, it's the construction workers. Will be live on their building site in Reading at 7:45.
OK. Have you got any discussions, anything you want to say, anything you want to tell us about the heat? And that you've had to endure in your job, or you used to endure in your job, gbviews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GB News.
Now, the big question on everyone's lips as they wake up this morning, how did you sleep last night? How did you sleep?
I think I must have been on drugs.
You were in a coma.
I was in a coma. That's a good description.
I was so hot, so hot. I woke up so thirsty, parched. I was tossing and turning all night. Awful. Hated it. And I don't really mind being hot, but it was too hot last night. So anyway, if you are, like me, in the southern part of the country and struggling with these temperatures, you're not alone. They reached up to 33 degrees in the shade yesterday in some parts. And according to the Met Office, next week could get even hotter.
Well, to tell us more about this heat wave and how long it could last, we get the point. It is journalist Nathan Rao with this one. Well, Nathan, isn't it not just called the summer?
It's not. This is some of the hottest weather, or we're going into some of the hottest weather that we have ever experienced. So we really are going through a hot period, which doesn't look like it's going to go anytime soon. The temperatures are way up there in the high 20s, mid to high 20s, right through to the end of the month. So it could be an unprecedented period of weather for the UK.
It was very, and we love to complain about the weather in this country, and dare I say it was very British heat yesterday, certainly in London. There wasn't a lot of blue sky, but there was a lot of heaviness in the air.
Yes.
And it wasn't good tanning weather, for example. It was just thick, muggy heat.
Yes. In the summer, when we get high pressure, now what we've had in the run-up to this period is high pressure over the UK, and that high pressure has come all the way from the Azores Islands in the Atlantic, and high pressure causes those lovely blue skies and sunshine to come through. At the moment, we've got a bit of a cold front coming through, which may be good news to you guys, because if you don't like the heat and you can't sleep, it's going to be a bit cooler, and that can bring some muggier, some bit more cloudier conditions. But we're going back into high pressure at the weekend.
Okay.
And not only that, we've got a low pressure to the west of the UK, which is going to act with that high to draw up some really hot air from North Africa through Spain and France and then into the UK. And that's what we're looking at for those really high temperatures at the weekend.
OK. And, we had this record temperature in 2019 of 38.7 degrees. We look like we might be breaking that record from just a few years ago. We're sort of smashing records, but only in recent history. Is this an indicator of the C word, climate change?
There's no doubt the weather is changing. If you look back to 1976, the famous heat wave of 1976, we only reached...
Summer of your life, that
the summer of...
Yeah.
It only reached 35, and again in 1995 there was a long heat wave. We're looking at temperatures of 35. This weekend, some of the weather models, even though they suspect they're slightly exaggerated, are popping out temperatures of 40. That is unprecedented in the UK, so there's definitely a change happening. Now, whether that's man-made.
Well, the difference in 76 was it went on forever. I think it was about 10 weeks.
It was a very, very long heat wave. Well, this one, we don't know how it's going to last. But in 2018, if you remember, when all the parks went brown and dried out, which is not that long ago, that went on for weeks and weeks and weeks, no rain and very, very high temperatures that are sometimes unusual for the UK, but becoming more usual.
And so what do we need to start bracing ourselves for? I was bathing my kids last night, and for the first time, I sort of started to think, hang on a minute, we need to actually think about how much water we're using. I normally just let them run it themselves, but I started being a bit stricter about how deep it was.
So far, there's no hosepipe bans, but obviously it's a good idea to have a look at water. There's not much rain in the forecast, certainly across southern and central England through the next few weeks, although reservoir levels seem to be OK, river levels are holding up, but certainly look at the water you're using. But it's more taking care during this hot weather. And one interesting thing, if you love a barbecue, is there are warnings that barbecues could sort of go bang in this hot weather over the weekend. So if you like a barbecue at the weekend, be careful. Don't leave ethanol and stuff in the sunshine. Be careful with the naked flames. Have a barbecue by all means, but take care because these are really high temperatures that we're not used to.
Yeah, and yesterday we saw wildfires in some parts of the UK. We saw Trafalgar Square on fire at one point. The day before, we'd seen an electrical fire on a railway line. Things are literally combusting.
This is the sort of weather that, I mean, ground temperatures, the air temperatures are in the mid-30s, and that's what we're looking at, maybe 40. It's unlikely. But ground temperatures in hot spots under the sunshine can ratchet right up to 50 degrees. I mean, this is where, you go out with barefoot. You can burn yourself on the ground. So these sort of temperatures can soften roads. You might see gritters out and about, which you usually see in the winter when they're gritting the roads for the ice. But in the summer, when the surface is softened, they put grit on the roads to help the drivers. So all these sorts of things we're looking at now in the next few days of impacts from the weather, which could affect us.
And just always remember, if you've got a dog or small children, do not leave them in a car.
I would even say, I mean, I'm not taking my dog out in this weather at all. Even for a walk in the park, it's too hot. And cars can get to as hot as another.
And pets' paws, their feet, as well. Got to worry about that as well.
If you put your hand on the pavement, I mean, it will be too hot anyway. But if you put your hand on the pavements and surfaces, if it's too hot for you, it's going to be too hot for your dog.
OK, Nathan, thank you very much indeed. Nathan Rao there, weather journalist, just talking to you about what is ahead. Your story's very welcome. Stay with us. We're going to go through the papers very shortly. David Miller and Claire Muldoon with those after this.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Well, you've been very busy on the social media this morning. Anthony talking about the Conservative leadership contest. Kemi Badenoch will be our next PM, says Anthony, because she's not tarred with being part of the old guard. She's black and will appeal to amass more people than any man will do. She's more believable than Truss or Mordaunt, and she'll be Starmer's worst nightmare. I hope Conservative MPs have the guts to put her in the last two for selection.
That's from her mum.
Hang on, David. 1 second from you. Mark says, I totally agree with your view this morning about Rishi Sunak being the best person for Prime Minister. Great guy, so professional, and should not be forgotten how hard he worked during the pandemic. Fair point.
Right, OK. Well, thanks to those. We'll reflect those throughout the programme. As we now go through, you will have heard he's introduced himself, the former Conservative Chief Secretary of the Treasury, Mr David Miller, and the broadcaster Claire Muldoon. So, David, what is your problem with Kemi Badenoch then?
I haven't got a problem with Kemi Badenoch. I'm sure she's very good. I just think it's ludicrous for someone who's never been in the Cabinet to stand for leader of the Conservative Party.
So that applies to Tom Tugendhat as well?
Yeah, of course.
So what's the problem with that? I mean, surely that might actually help, and...
It doesn't help the Conservative Party that their divisions are yet again paraded across the press. I think the Conservative Party is supposed to be, the old joke is coming back. Are you a member of an organised political party? No, I'm a Conservative. And basically what they need to do is to have had a much smaller, more disciplined race and got on with it. As it is, there are people who are running who, it's a bit like a youth team player at Charlton Athletic suddenly saying he should be the captain of England. It's ridiculous.
But do you think the fact that this has been such a truncated series of early votes is to do that, exactly that, to try and stop this blue-on-blue bloodletting?
Well, it hasn't been truncated in one sense. Yes, having these races each day and getting rid of people on quite a high threshold. But why shouldn't there be a threshold of 30 MPs when they've got to get far more to win? But the depressing thing is, look, there's a closely guarded secret here. Someone, I'm sure, watching this programme will know the answer. Please tell us, what is the membership of the Conservative Party these days? Now, in the good old days, as I define my time in politics, it used to be at least 500,000, maybe more. We've been talking about it, and it's thought to be around 60 to 80,000.
Is that all?
Yes, wow. Exactly. And then you get all the golden oldies, the sort of people who deplore the death of Queen Victoria. And basically, the trouble is, once you get to the last two and you give them the vote, you can be absolutely certain it'll be the most right-wing one that will get it. And the question has to be, is the most right-wing person, given they're all right-wing in different shades, is that going to be the right person? And
so who is the most right-wing?
Well, I would have thought that Truss would put herself forward as the most
She's the most right-wing, but yeah. Who would be the best person, do you think?
Well, I mean, look, if you can discount all this undesirable stuff about, being the kept man of his father-in-law, I think Rishi Sunak would be the best. Because, you see, look, what offends me, and I had a spell as Chief Secretary of the Treasury, and it's grown-up economics. To hear these people talk about tax cuts, as if a tax cut is like putting 10p on the amount of money you pay on a pension or whatever. They don't seem to realise that a tax cut is the reward you offer a community when they have agreed to spend less money, and so there is more public money that can then be released to the community. And I just think that basically it's just so much nonsense about tax cuts. It's almost a childish discussion.
But why would the Conservative Party vote Rishi Sunak to be their leader, David, if he was in charge of the public purse for so many years before this new election campaign started? And yet we're all heading globally, I think, for a recession. Why would we put the man in charge of the public purse back in the job, but the best job there could be?
Well, because I don't think he was an ineffective Chancellor. Don't forget, he had to deal with Boris. And Boris was an old-style tax and spend socialist, basically. Boris believed if there was a problem, you threw a lot of public money at it.
Yeah.
He, as Chancellor, had no choice, really, but to go along with it. But it's forgive me for saying this, but, when I was Chief Secretary of the Treasury 30 years ago, admittedly, we had the lowest share of the public purse consumed, a lowest share of the national wealth consumed by the public purse. Now we've got to the point where we've got the highest take by the public by the government in tax aid, whatever, for 70 years.
Yes, but couldn't
that is not something for a Conservative to be proud of.
Now look to not only someone who is fiscally aware, but someone who's also socially aware and got a good grasp of the court of public opinion
Who are you
and the
thinking
temperature.
of, then?
I think Badenoch is the best person for the job.
she's probably got the closest fiscal alignment to Rishi Sunak.
Yeah.
She's the other one who's saying she doesn't want to see tax cuts, but comes back to the thing of never having had cabinet experience. I mean, she's been a junior minister.
I don't think that's so much of a bad thing, actually, to be honest with you, because there is currently no opposition for the Conservatives, I don't think, in the Labour Party. And I think she represents an awful lot of people in the country. I think she's definitely got her finger in the pulse.
Can I ask you, David, because the kingmakers in all of this, at least at the moment, seem to be the characters Jacob Rees-Mogg, Nadine Dorries, and they've come out saying things like Rishi Sunak is a socialist, even James Cleverly echoing those kind of sentiments. But as you point out, actually, weren't they more the policies of Boris Johnson that he's being accused of? And they were all huge supporters of Boris.
Exactly.
You put your finger exactly on it. Boris was not a Conservative in his economic thinking, insofar as he ever did think about economics. Boris was somebody who believed in throwing public money at problems. And as I probably boringly keep saying, if that had been the answer to Britain's problems, there'd be statues in every village square to Harold Wilson and Dennis Healey, because that's what they did. But unfortunately, it didn't really work. And I just think the longer this nonsense goes on, the more it makes the Conservative Party look divided, but also, look, I look at a lot of these candidates. It reminds me of something that was said about, I was very friendly with Ronald Reagan, and I didn't agree with all the abuse of Ronald Reagan, but some of the abuse of Ronald Reagan was quite funny. And one of them was when somebody said, you can walk across Ronald Reagan's deepest thoughts and not get your feet wet. And that is so true of most of these candidates. Are you going to get your feet wet walking across Liz Truss's deepest thoughts?
Well,
I don't
Isabel
think so.
talked about the kingmakers. The Daily Mail may be one of those kingmakers or queenmakers because they're loving Liz Truss. I mean, that's all they seem to be talking about.
It is, and the right wing, well, the right wing media, Daily Mail, the mainstream media, are really pushing Liz Truss, and I just don't see the appeal myself. I really, really don't.
I think she's going to win. That's my prediction.
Seriously, you're
but
putting
what do I know?
Really?
No, I think you're getting mystic sitting next to me every week.
I'm absorbing some
Given
of
you true mysticity, and you might be right.
Where do you want to
Horrendous
pick up again,
right.
David, on the stories here? I mean, they're all leadership stories there, but
but I
what's
think
this
that,
3 R's? This in the Times, page 6, 3 R's. Rishi's 3 R's.
Yes, that is that's a very good article by their columnist Quentin Letts, who basically does their parliamentary sketches, and essentially what you've got is just a review of what some of these candidates are really like, and we'll see.
Well, the idea that it was rebuild, restore and rave about Boris, and the man who, stabbed him in the back last week came out and love-bombed him yesterday, saying that he had a big heart, and what was the other phrase he used about Boris Johnson?
Who's this, Sajid Javid?
No, Rishi Sunak.
Oh, right.
He said he was full of admiration, or he was, a remarkable character.
Yes, because he was able to take those pictures from 11 Downing Street, wasn't he, of some of the parties in
well, that was never
garden.
Confirmed.
As
he
Paul
took the
said,
photo.
he knew where that view was.
Yes, now my problem is I read papers online. There was also an article by Quentin Letts about all of them, but the one we've been pointed up is a different, interesting one. So, but it's quite worth reading what he has to say, because he has to sit in that gallery of that House of Commons, day in, day out, writing about these folk. And you see, the trouble is, for most of us, we haven't the slightest idea what they're really like. And the question is, when one of them gets to the top, what do we then find out that it would have been nice to know now, which we only find out then?
Oh, this one. Right.
Yes, there we are. Look, the one is page 8. The one who drives the mandarins to drink. The one with great hair.
Oh, who's that?
Well, I mean,
you.
Well, it has potential, doesn't it?
Michael Fabricant.
And the half French one.
Oh, right. Well, that's Tom Tugendhat. I guess the good hair is Penny Mordaunt, if I think about it. Keep going. Give me. This is quite fun.
I guess it must be. Yes, yes. And then and the one who drives the mandarins to drink, which...
Suella Braverman?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. So, but I mean, it's all pretty lightweight stuff. But then what they are is pretty lightweight. You see, because, you know, I know I'm tedious, but I just think at some point it would be nice to have a mature discussion about how you manage the economy. But we ain't going to get it, are we?
I do think when you talk about the leadership contest, it's also interesting to try and imagine what kind of cabinet each of those candidates would build. And I can imagine a Liz Truss cabinet looking very similar to a Boris Johnson one. You probably would see Priti Patel back in there, wouldn't you? You'd probably see some of the familiar faces. What would a Rishi Sunak cabinet look like? Perhaps it would have some of those more grown-up characters that
yes, exactly.
What about the thing that Boris said yesterday, that he wanted the vote of no confidence to exclude a part of the bill that the Labour Party want to bring in order to have a general election? Do we feel that Britain wants a general election to give them the choice of who will actually be the Prime Minister, instead of sitting through the diatribe day in, day out of this 1922 committee trying to get the leader of the Conservative Party?
No, exactly. It's interesting. As you say, it's down to 80,000 membership in the end.
It may even be 60.
Right.
But it's interesting, because I haven't read about the membership of the Conservative Party.
And neither have I.
And they won't say.
Okay.
Now, why won't they say?
Never good.
No, Miss City, why won't they say?
Well, it's never good.
Exactly.
Let's finish by making us all seem very small and puny, and that is the front page of The Guardian for you, Claire.
Yeah, and
this
you know,
is pictures from what is called the James Webb Space Telescope.
Apologies to people listening to us on the radio this morning, but the pictures from the James Webb satellite and James Webb telescope, was actually named after James Webb, the administrator of NASA, who was there from 61 to 68. And these pictures on page 22 and 23 of The Guardian today are absolutely beautiful. And the other thing that strikes me about this, which is so lovely, we're often always fed things about artificial intelligence, algorithms, and yet here's a telescope, man-made, brought out. It launched on the 25th of December, 2001, I think it was, 2021, sorry, launched into space, and the pictures are absolutely unbelievable. Who would have thought that astrophysicists, whenever you had one at a dinner party, if you ever have, I haven't, but they were sitting there saying, what did you do? I'm an astrophysicist. You would think, yawn, you know, what do you... But here,
I'll tell you what I
this
think.
is a brilliant thing that actually...
I look at them, and I don't care what your religious beliefs are or not, if you have them or not, but you've got to look and think,
there's something out there.
Where did this come from?
Yes,
Who created this? It makes us feel very, very...
I mean, my brain just can't cope with all of that.
No,
What's going on there? What's happening? I find it actually quite frightening. I agree with you. Yeah. I'd almost rather block it off.
I love it, actually.
Think about Nadine Dorries, you know.
A bit awesome, all of this. Awesome. Right, let's get up to date on this story from the States. Twitter taking billionaire Elon Musk to court to try and make him buy the social media company. He, of course, Musk is the richest man in the world. He backed out of the deal last week. We go to LA. We've got the latest in this one from Kinsey Schofield as to what it all means. Kinsey, tell us more.
Yeah, that's right. $44 billion. Twitter is suing Elon. They say that he signed on the dotted line, so he has to commit to this. Elon's pushing back and said that there are 5% at least bots, fake accounts, and he doesn't believe that's worth $44 billion. Now, Twitter argues that during the stock market crash in April, that Elon lost $100 billion. Also, Twitter then valued less than the $44 billion that he originally offered them, and they think that he's just embarrassed, he's red-faced, and they don't want to, and he doesn't want to cut them that check now, so they are taking him to court. You know, he did sign on the dotted line. I think that most people would argue that he's going to have a hard time fighting this in court. However, there was so much publicity and media attention around the revolt inside of Twitter. Perhaps Elon could argue to a judge, to a jury, that he did not want to have to go in and fight for his job. He didn't want to have to go in and fight those employees. So people are arguing that perhaps that could be his strength to get out of this deal.
Interesting, Kinsey. And look, what a high worth and high net value battle this is all going to be. It certainly seems in the process anyway, even if he does end up having to buy Twitter, he'll kind of trash the reputation in the process.
Yeah, but he did say, and this is what Twitter says in their argument, okay, you can say we have 5% bots and 5% fake accounts, but you said in your initial attempt at purchasing us that you were going to come on board and clean it up. So that was initially what he said. And one good thing for Elon in this process, if it does go to court, is that Twitter would have to provide him with all of those analytics that they've kind of pushed back on, and they would have to provide honest analytics on how many accounts are fake, how many accounts are duplicates, and how many people are really utilizing Twitter for as a positive platform and not just getting on there to sell or harass people with these machines.
As an author, you are about to bring out a book which details revenge, and you've done it in a very entertaining way. Some nasty acts of revenge from various people in the public eye throughout the years. We might see an addition. We might see, when it goes to paperback, you might see another chapter here.
With Elon? I'm not fighting with Elon. He's a very intimidating man.
He's a very rich man as well. But the whole idea that where would this leave Twitter? I mean, if they were to win this case, or if they were to say if they were to lose this case, they're back where they started. Where does that leave them? And why is it important to us at all who owns Twitter?
I mean, I think the idea of Elon Musk owning Twitter is really interesting because he has said he would bring back former President Donald Trump. Now, that could be news-wise. Every morning we were waking up to newsworthy tweets, and tweets that, quite frankly, were kind of scary. What direction would a tweet take the world? And so Elon is really focused on free speech, and he's focused on allowing everybody to have a platform, and sometimes that can get really dangerous. So where would we be if Elon owned it? I think is a much more interesting idea than if Twitter, it stays with Twitter alone. Because we do know that Twitter does target a certain group online. They do tend to target people that are more conservative. So I do think it's actually a much more interesting idea to think about Elon Musk owning it, but I think we lean into dangerous territory there if he brings back people like, the former president.
OK, thank you, Kinsey. Really appreciate your take on things, as always. Thanks for staying up for us. We'll leave it there. Kinsey Schofield, thank you.
Stay with us. Coming up at 7 o'clock, we'll have all the latest for you on the Tory leadership contest. In the last few moments, the Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, has come out and declared his support for Rishi Sunak. We'll have all the details on that and the rest of the day's news after your forecast.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update. Plenty of sunshine around for the next couple of days. Not as hot as the last few days, but we could see temperatures rising further as we head into the weekend. High pressure has been dominating, one area pushing away, but another one moving back in. But it's moving back in behind this cold front that's been drifting south, and that will introduce slightly cooler conditions for most of us today. It's a little fresher out there this morning, still very warm and humid in the south. But further north, we've got a fairly brisk wind continuing to bring some showers over the Highlands and the Northern Isles and the Western Isles. Maybe one or two showers getting into southwest Scotland during the day too. But for most places, dry and fine after the early cloud tending to break up across the south. Here, still pretty warm, 27, 28 Celsius, but not the 30 or more we've seen over recent days. And further north, generally fresher, more comfortable conditions, less humid, temperatures in the high teens, low 20s. Through this evening, we'll see a bit more cloud spilling into northwest England and Northern Ireland, with maybe one or two showers here. We'll keep some showers in the far north of Scotland as well, but further south it does stay dry. It'll be a cooler night again. Still temperatures staying in the teens, but lower than the night just gone. Into Thursday, and it's a fine summer's day across southern England, South Wales, plenty of sunshine. Further north, a bit more cloud to come tomorrow over particularly northwest England, western Scotland and Northern Ireland, where there will be some outbreaks of rain at times. Much of eastern Scotland and to the east of the Pennines staying dry and bright. Plenty of sunshine, as I say, in the south, and we've lost the heat, so temperatures, although potentially getting into the high 20s across the southeast, mostly high teens, low 20s, so close to average for the time of year, and it will feel that much fresher than the past few days. However, the heat is expected to build again through this weekend, and the Met Office do have an extreme heat warning in place covering both Sunday and Monday.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
The race for number 10 is down to 8 candidates ahead of the first ballot today.
Hello there, very good morning to you. Just after 7 o'clock on this Wednesday, the 13th of July, you're tuned in to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, and the former Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, lead the race to become the next leader of the Conservative Party and the future Prime Minister. 8 candidates remain ahead of the first ballot today.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson has blocked Labour's demand for a no-confidence vote in him and his government. The spokesman for the PM accused Labour of playing politics by tabling the motion.
The Met Office has issued an extreme heat warning as temperatures rise across the UK. Meteorologists have predicted that this weekend could see the hottest day ever on record, with temperatures reaching over 40 degrees.
And Heathrow Airport has asked airlines to stop selling tickets over the summer as it struggles to keep up with demand. It comes as the airport announces it will cap the amount of passengers that can fly through its terminals to 100,000 a day. That's down 4,000 each day.
And as always, you can join in any of our discussions. You can email us, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
One thing I want to ask you about, to tweet about, because later on today, what time's Anthea Turner coming in? Because she's visited...
9, I think.
Yeah, 8:45. Anthea has revisited a recycling centre, and she tells me that if you don't wash your recycling stuff forensically, it will not be accepted, right? Then we get, and I've talked about this, and I've said, you know, this recycling thing is a complete farce. If you don't want plastic, don't make it. Don't leave it to us to clear up the mess for manufacturers. But the Mirror has this frightening story today. Our recycling dumped abroad. It says, tons of plastic waste sent for processing are fly-tipped and burned in Turkey. So it's all a lie. We're being fed a lie about recycling. Let us know your views on this. Does it put you off? Because a lot of you are resolute. A lot of you really want to do the right thing. You put the right thing in the right bins on the right day, and you wash it and you do this. I had an interesting thing yesterday. I got a sandwich and it was in a cardboard packet. Very nice, fine, so
Does
easy.
it have a plastic cellophane thing on front and you can't recycle it with that on?
It had cellophane on the front.
To rip that bit off.
And you thought, what's the point?
I know, so you can see your product, but...
No, but well, you know, what is the point? Because it's just, they try and make out, oh, we're all cuddly and lovely and this is cardboard and you can recycle this. But it had this cellophane window on it.
Well, look, it's all very depressing and miserable, but to cheer you up, we want to talk about the People's Champion as well. We know there's lots of good news out there. We're determined to shine a light on it. You know the drill. Send in somebody's details, somebody in your community who you think goes above and beyond with the title Breakfast People's Champion.
Conservative leadership battle is our top story. The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, the former Chancellor Rishi Sunak and the former Defence Secretary Penny Mordaunt lead that leadership contest as Tory MPs prepare to vote in the first ballot today.
So 8 candidates remain in the race after shock exit from Sajid Javid yesterday, and Grant Shapps and Riemann Chisti dropped out as well yesterday.
Well, the candidates that secure at least 30 votes from amongst other MPs will proceed to the next round, and that round will be tomorrow when the final 2 will be chosen.
Well, let's get more details on all of this from the Deputy Editor of CapEx, Alice Denby, and our political correspondent, Tom Harwood. Good morning to you both. Look, the breaking line this morning, the latest person to come out in support of the frontrunner, it has to be said in terms of MP support, is Steve Barclay. He was former Chief of Staff under Boris Johnson, appointed as Health Secretary last week, and he's come out saying, I'm convinced he has all the right attributes to take our country forward. That may be the view of many in the parliamentary party. What about Rishi's chances with the membership?
Yeah, it does feel like MPs are sort of rallying around Rishi as the kind of establishment candidate. I think, as I said earlier, he's got at least 2 former chief whips behind him, so that might explain why he's getting, you know, so much support from MPs. But I think what we will see is the sort of, perhaps you might call it the right of the party, rallying behind another candidate as a kind of stop Rishi candidate to go to the members, and I think it's pretty likely that that person will succeed in the membership vote.
Interesting. And who do you think that might be?
I think it's going to be between Liz Truss and Penny Mordaunt and maybe Kemi Badenoch.
See, I find it interesting that Liz Truss is being lined up as the right candidate when she voted leave, when actually Remain, when Rishi Sunak actually voted to leave, and he's obviously now got the backing of Steve Barclay, who was Brexit minister throughout all of the negotiations. So, you know, is it a fair description as, you know, Rishi Sunak as being the centrist and Liz Truss really being a right candidate?
Yeah, it is odd how it's kind of just how they seem to present themselves rather than how they might have actually voted in the referendum. So Liz Truss is kind of leave-coded. And I think Rishi's got the sort of more moderate economic platform on, you know, he says we're not ready for tax cuts yet, whereas Liz Truss is tax cuts from day one. So I think there's a kind of a fair degree of schizophrenia among a lot of the candidates' platforms.
I think that's a good description.
Yeah. Tom Harwood, from the Westminster perspective, you're there, you're mixing, you know what's going on. This is fascinating because when you look at, you know, who's put themselves forward, the horse trading that is going to go on, and one suspects that some people say to others, you can have my votes, you can have my support if I get a place in your cabinet.
That's always going to be the case. And one of the issues with the 2019 leadership election we hear is that Boris Johnson was thought to promise a lot of things to a lot of people that might not have actually turned out to be true. And this is almost the curse of the front runner. What you get is a lot of people sort of going for these sort of jobs and coalescing around who they think is most likely to get in. And no doubt there's some of that going on. But I think there's also an interesting part. And we talk about horse trading. We might also want to talk about vote lending, because of the 8 candidates who made it through that nomination threshold of 20 MPs yesterday, only 4 of them have 20 or more public backers. The other 4 don't have 20 or more public backers. So either there are some MPs who are backing them very, very privately, or what might be going on is some larger campaigns are sort of lending votes through to other campaigns to try and knock out rivals and make the debate more favourable to them, if you see what I mean. So there's definitely some tricks going on. One thing that I noticed yesterday as I attended Rishi Sunak's formal launch event at the QE2 Centre. Someone standing in the corner of the room there was someone who was working on Boris Johnson's 19 campaign, and that was Gavin Williamson, one of the great organisers of the Conservative Party, former chief whip, of course.
So where is Gavin Williamson now? Where is he?
Physically in the world?
I mean, is he still an MP?
He is still an MP. He's not. He hasn't been in the cabinet since he resigned as Education Secretary. But he is well known for reading the runes, doing the numbers, and crucially organising in terms of these campaigns. So the fact that such a competent organiser is behind Rishi Sunak does lend the analysis to the fact that this is Rishi Sunak's race to lose amongst MPs.
I just want to break into the discussion and just bring an update with some breaking news. We were expecting the GDP figures from the Office for National Statistics at 7 o'clock. Those have just come in. Some good news. The UK economy returns to growth after 2 months of GDP contraction. It grew by 0.5% in May. That's according to those latest figures.
So we've avoided a technical recession. That's a joy.
For another month to go. So, you know, how much will that play into all of the debates and discussions, particularly around tax and spend that we're hearing from the leaders at the moment?
It's interesting that this debate has been so focused on the economy so far. Nadeem Zwahi tried to talk about crime yesterday, but that got completely swallowed away by everyone else and the other launches going on. I think, crucially, numbers like this are not going to affect the general view, which is that the economy hasn't been managed in a particularly wise way up until this point. Even Rishi Sunak, the man who was nominally ahead in charge of the economy for the last 2.5 years, he said that the party needs to return to sort of traditional Conservative economics, which was a strange thing for him to say in his launch yesterday, because he was the person that was in charge of the economy.
But was he taking the orders from the PM? That is the question. But Alice Denby, what do you make of what you're hearing here about the growth in the economy?
Yeah, as I say, good news that we're technically not in recession, but that's a very sluggish figure. And I think it just highlights how important it is going to be for whoever gets this job to really, really focus on growth. And obviously, it's the cost of living that is the most immediate effect on people's lives. But to get the kind of long-term growth we need, you need to look at business taxation. And, you know, it's good to see quite a few of the candidates agreeing to not raise corporation tax. I'd like to see, you know, much more focus on what we can do to incentivise investment and to get the economy growing again.
So the corporation tax, very interesting, because that would have been a Sunak policy. Will he have to backtrack on that?
The interesting thing about Rishi Sunak's campaign is just how light on policy it is. He's not committing to a single element of policy, really, beyond ambition, saying he wants to cut taxes once inflation is under control. Now, that's not saying which taxes he wants to cut, beyond basically standing on the Treasury plans that he set out as Chancellor. So nothing really new from Rishi Sunak in terms of policy, and I don't think we should expect anything new from Rishi Sunak. If you're the front runner, if the campaign's going relatively well for you right now, the worst thing you want to do is commit news. And so I think we're going to see a very, very quiet Rishi Sunak for the next few weeks.
Tom, thanks for your take on that. Alice, lovely to hear from you. Thank you very much indeed for your analysis there as well. We're going to talk about holiday flight chaos, if you're thinking about it. Maybe Heathrow's not the place to fly from. Heathrow now ordering airlines to stop selling tickets for summer flights. We're going to find out exactly what that means. They introduce a cap on the numbers of passengers that it will allow to pass through terminals, which we believe will be 100,000 a day under this new rule from July to September. No more than 100,000 will be able to depart from the airport, OK? That is per day.
So let's speak to our South East of England reporter, Ellie Costello, see if that's going to make any significant improvement for passengers going through Heathrow. What do you make of it all, Ellie?
Well, it's more bad news, isn't it, for passengers who are trying to make their way through Heathrow Airport this summer. The airport has told airlines to stop booking tickets for this summer. They're going to cut passenger numbers, or they're hoping to, by 4,000 people a day. That's about 30,000 people per per week. And the aim of all of this is to try and ease some of that disruption that we've been seeing in the past few weeks. I mean, we've all seen those pictures, haven't we, of baggage piling up high. We've heard about lost baggage, cancelled flights. Perhaps you've been one of those people who've even got to the gate to be told that your flight has been cancelled. It's been a really rough couple of weeks for the travel industry, and this is a plan that's been set in motion to try and ease some of that disruption before the school holidays. Now, Heathrow Airport has really struggled to recruit staff post-pandemic, and that is just one of the reasons why we are seeing the delays and the disruption that we have been seeing. But the boss of Heathrow Airport came out yesterday and said that it was absolutely unacceptable and that he and his team had decided that 100,000 passengers was the absolute maximum that they could cater for at the moment. Well, I spoke to travel expert Simon Calder, who told me more about the plan.
We've never seen anything like this decision by Heathrow to say, right, between now and the 11th of September, we are capping departures from Britain's busiest airport at 100k a day. They're doing it because they simply think that the various ground handlers, airlines, everybody else involved in getting you and your luggage from A to B can't cope with more than 100,000 people a day. At this stage, we don't know exactly how the airlines are going to deal with this sudden flight cap, 100k a day, that Heathrow has imposed on departures. But if you are booked, please don't do anything yet. And if you do find out in time that yours is one of the very few flights that will be cancelled, then under air passenger rights rules, you're entitled to be flown to your destination on the original day at the airline's expense.
Well, this will affect all flights from yesterday all the way up to the 11th of September. That's what counts as a summer flight. And here at Heathrow, it will affect flights leaving from all terminals, so 2, 3, 4 and 5. There isn't a Terminal 1, which I do know is a bit strange. And you did hear Simon there. He did say to check your flight before you leave. You are entitled to a replacement flight on the day you're supposed to travel at a cost to the airline. So don't panic if you do find out that your flight has been cancelled. But ultimately, this move is just set to frustrate passengers even more in what has already been a pretty miserable travel summer. But it is hoped that if you are a passenger coming through Heathrow, that your journey through is going to be much quicker and much smoother.
I doubt that, but wishful thinking. Thank you, Ellie. Just want to get this totally clear. They use this term summer flights, but we're not talking about if you're flying to Rome or Milan or Madrid or whatever. This could equally apply if you're flying to Manchester, Glasgow, Belfast, yeah?
Yep, absolutely. So it doesn't have to be a summer destination, which the name might suggest. It is any flight from yesterday to the 11th of September. So basically lasting the whole of the summer period. Any of those flights could have limited passenger numbers on them. So what people may find, if they haven't already booked their flights from Heathrow Airport, that they're looking at way reduced passenger numbers on the flights they're looking for. Therefore, they could pay more for their flights. So if you are looking to book a summer holiday, perhaps don't look at Heathrow Airport, maybe look at another airport around the London area, and to be flexible with your dates as well.
Thank you. I love the way they describe Stansted as being around the London area. I mean, you might as well hike to the Himalayas.
I love the way you're like, so those flights to Belfast, just asking for a friend.
Well, I'm asking for a friend. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that, you know, people will think, oh, well, it's only if I'm going to Rome or Ibiza or whatever. It's not. It's the domestic flights as well. It's any flights as well. And I just want to say as well, you know, over the past year, I have been incapacitated with discs in my back, and I've had to use assisted boarding.
Nightmare.
No, not a nightmare. Absolutely brilliant. What those people have to do, and the sort of people that take advantage of them as well. Terminals are massive, massive places. That's why I am more in favour of smaller airports around the country rather than this mass Heathrow, mass Gatwick nightmare type thing. But all the staff, just a shout out for all you staff who open the doors today and you just see queues coming at you, whether you're doing baggage, whether you're doing assisted boarding, whether you're doing check-in or whatever. respect to you, and what a complication being hired by such incompetent employers.
And you
It
know,
must
while
be
we're
awful.
at it, you won't get that kind of shout out on any of our rival channels. So why not, if you're in an airport terminal today, go up to them and get them to stick GB News on in the terminal there, because we appreciate you. So, you know, make it a two-way street.
Yeah, you know, give them a hug. You know, those people in security, you know, they've got an awful job to do. And, you know, people by and large, and I speak on behalf of all of us, we're stupid. People at airports are stupid. No, they are. They are. The majority of people in airports...
A bit aggro, maybe.
You know, oh, I didn't know I couldn't carry this gas canister in my handbag, you know, or this knife. Oh, I normally bring these pair of scissors with me everywhere. You know, when's the message, when's the penny going to drop with people? But respect to airport staff, just respect to all of you, and cabin crew. That's a whole other story. 19 minutes past 7 o'clock. We're going to bring you up to date with the other stories, and this is disturbing, very disturbing to see. This is new CCTV footage which has been released showing the events of the shooting that took place in the school in Texas in May. The video shows the police stopping to use hand sanitizer, would you believe? And while the gunman, the 18-year-old nutcase Salvador Ramos, entered the school carrying a rifle and killing all those children.
An amber extreme heat warning's been issued for Sunday and next Monday. This comes after forecasts that there's a 30% chance the UK could record its highest temperature ever next week.
Low-income households will receive £326 tomorrow, the first payment meant to ease the cost of living crisis. Those who receive government support, such as universal credit and job seekers allowance, may be eligible to receive the payout, which will total £650 after a second sum is given in autumn.
Coming up, we've got all the latest sports news with Paul Coyte, including a look ahead to the 150th Open taking place in St Andrews this week. That's after this.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Lots still to come on our programme this morning as the government blocks Labour's call for a no-confidence vote in Boris Johnson that could trigger a general election. We'll be speaking to the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury live from Westminster about what that's all about just before 8 o'clock.
The heatwave that's due in the weekend continues in large parts of the country, even where it's not sunny. It's quite muggy as well, of course. Yeah. And we're meeting some of the people working in some of the hottest jobs. I mean, think about it, working in kitchens, digging up roads or in construction and that sort of thing. And first up is construction. We're going to a building site in Reading in about 20 minutes' time. Okay?
And lots of you getting in touch this morning. We love to hear from you. Keep them coming in. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us @gbnews.
We go to sport now with Paul Coyte, and let's look at the back pages. Daily Mail, first of all. England's cricket loss to India, one-day international. The paper praises India's bowlers, who hammered the home side by 10 wickets in just 18 overs. Here's the Sun. Football there. It reports that Napoli centre-back Kalidou Koulibaly will soon be on the move to Chelsea after they bid £35 million for the player. And here's the Express. It says, live and let die, which focuses on Tiger Woods' comments that the golfers who transferred to the Saudi-backed Live series have turned their backs on the sport. Right, all of that ahead of all the enthusiasm and all the loveliness and all the fantasticness of the 150th Open at St Andrews. I love watching golf.
Oh, so do I.
Just so relaxing.
Being there now and the weather, the 150th Open.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was invited, but I thought I can't really stand watching all this or walking around.
They have a shooting stick, don't you?
Yeah, shooting stick, which might be a good idea, yeah. But the lovely thing about golf, of course, is that you get so close to the players.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like the sound. It's like a sabre. You know, when they just when they hit that ball.
And you see how far they can truly hit the ball
with such ease.
It's just unbelievable. They had the celebration of champions. I don't know if you saw that on Monday. And I mean, everybody's there for the 150th Open. Everybody's there. Jack Nicklaus is there. Tom Watson is there. Gary Player. I mean, they're all there. And they were playing. And there was Lee Trevino. Remember Lee Trevino?
Oh,
Lee Trevino's 82. Remember Lee Trevino used to do pro celebrity golf with Peter Alice in the day. He was always the joker. Hasn't changed a bit. And he was playing around with Jack Nicklaus. Tiger was playing. Rory McIlroy were playing. They're all playing together. And I was watching this, and I was watching it on a stream on Monday. And they had the microphones nearby. It was not being interviewed.
Yeah.
But what was really interesting is that you could just hear them talking to each other. And I was just watching that for hours.
Yeah.
And it was almost just like, well, you know, they're saying, well, what you going to be doing later? And it was great. So everybody's there, and they had the celebration dinner last night, the Champions Dinner, which everybody was at except for Greg Norman.
Why was that?
Because Greg Norman is the guy who's behind Live Golf. The Saudi-backed, the enemy, pretty much. Is, and they thought, well, it's probably a couple of reasons. Probably not a good idea that he's going to be there because of so many players that are going over there.
But he is an all-time great, isn't he?
Well, he is an all-time great, and he's won the Open as well, but they probably thought he's going to be tapping everybody up to go and join them, so they probably thought it may not be a good idea. But there is still that tension between them. You've got players like Phil Mickelson. He's going to be playing in the Open, but also he's one of the main people behind that's involved in Live Golf. You know, he's getting hundreds of millions.
So Tiger Woods, who already has hundreds of millions, comes out and says, you know, you guys have turned your back on the sport. I mean, I suppose it really does split the sport because people would say it's okay for you to talk, Tiger.
Because, you know, you've done very well.
Yeah.
But the thing in Tiger's defence is that he is a true lover of the game. There's that picture. That's what I was talking about. There they are. That was at the celebration when they were playing on Monday and, you know, having a great time. But Tiger is a true lover of the game and loves the history of the game. And there's no way. He was offered £400 million to join Live Golf. So when you've got that sort of money, I guess it's not really making any difference. But he doesn't want any part of it. And it'd be interesting to see.
Well, you could say it would have been easy money for him, wouldn't it? Because, you know, his best years are behind him.
Of course it would.
So, you know, to be a guaranteed payday on that.
But he wants to win the Open.
So fair play to him.
That's what he wants to win. There is a chance, there's half a chance that he may do it because this is going to be the swan song. This is what he really wants to win more than anything else. It's a flat course, so obviously after the car crash, he's had problems with his leg. So walking is not going to be too much of a problem. It's pretty flat. It would suit him. It's going to be a fairy tale if he does.
Today's the Pro-Am day, isn't it? And we tees off tomorrow, so we're seeing that...
If you'd have gone, you could have been playing it.
Well, I'm just seeing these tee times. Do these apply to today or tomorrow?
That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
That's for tomorrow.
So,
that's when we get underway, first thing tomorrow. So the first, it's 6:30 tomorrow morning is when things get underway for the first round.
Golf is amazing because they're so forensic with the times. Rory McIlroy will tee off at 9:58.
Oh, and he will be at 9:58.
Not sort of 5 to 10 or 10 o'clock or whatever. And then you've got Matthew Fitzpatrick and Tiger Woods there at 14:59.
That would be
not 3 o'clock.
Oh no. It's the R&A, love.
Yeah.
You can't mess around. That would be my perfect job. To the tee at 3:53. For representing Northern Ireland, Eamonn Holmes. How about that? I mean, that would be great. And then you shank it into the...
That's happened to me. That's happened to me.
What, on the first tee?
On the first tee.
Everybody around.
And I hit a spectator right smack bang in the forehead. And they had to get an ambulance onto the course to take them away.
So what did you do? Sign the ball?
Cry, basically. It was awful. Awful.
Probably a good idea that you're not there this year anyway.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, my goodness.
Just a quick word about cricket. I thought this England cricket team was good.
Right, well, we've got two forms, haven't we? We've got the red ball, which is the Test side, and we've got the white ball, which is the T20s and the one-day side. Now, the way things were working, we're the world champions when it comes to the white ball one-day 50 overs side, and also we're probably the best in the world when it comes to the T20. But the Test side was bad. It's reversed. Suddenly, we've got Bazball, Brendan McCullum comes in to look after the Test side, and now we've got Owen Morgan, who is the captain of the white ball side, has retired, wasn't playing well. Josh Butler's taken over, and for some reason, the form has just been terrible. I mean, we got absolutely hammered by India yesterday.
OK.
Now they're going tomorrow.
Thanks, Paul. Tomorrow's another day.
Tomorrow is another day.
Thank you. God bless. Thank you very much indeed.
Look, stay with us. We're going to go through the newspapers. We're back with Mystic Mellor, also known as David Mellor, after this short break. He'll be joined by the broadcaster Claire Muldoon. See you in a moment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Let's bring you up to date. What do you knew would happen during the very short breaks we have here?
Best you don't.
Anyway, the good news is that the UK economy grew by 0.5% in May, following a 0.2% drop in April. According to figures from the Office for National Statistics, it says the rise in gross domestic product came after a bounce back across all services, manufacturing and construction.
8 Tory candidates face the first ballot later today to determine who will continue in the leadership battle. The candidates, who include Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt, need at least 30 votes to avoid elimination.
4 men have been arrested in an NCA operation which is targeting migrant smuggling to the UK by lorry. The arrests are linked to 2 separate events in 2019 where a total of 32 migrants were found in the back of HGVs, which basically mean big lorries, in the Netherlands and France. And this is an operation by the National Crime Agency. A lot of you talking about, where did it go? I just had it in front of me. Recycling. Do you have it, Isabel? No?
What views?
Recycling,
what are you
yeah,
for?
views. But recycling.
Yes, here you go.
Yeah, is that recycling?
Yeah, that one.
Mary says, may I suggest that when anyone goes to their local takeaway that has a television, ask them if they mind switching the station to GB News. That's for our crusade for recycling, which is just a joke, basically, why we're forced to do it or want to do it. We're talking about this in a... we're going to be talking about this at 8:45 with Anthea Turner, today's Visitor Recycling Centre. But basically, the Mirror today has this story. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Our recycling, we do all the right things, and then it's all shipped across the world, which is not very green. And this one is in Turkey. What do they do with it? They burn it. They burn it. Now, so at least if you were powering a power station or something with it, you can see some sense with all of this. Alan says recycling in this country is a joke on the public. What we produce and sell here should be recycled here and not sent out of the country. Absolutely right. Councils should be forced to explain where and why they are sending our recycling abroad. David, anything to say about this, about recycling?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think, there's a lot of trouble where you're asked to put your rubbish in different containers. Some councils get very heavy if you don't. And then you have a feeling that in some big dump somewhere, they're all mixed up together again, and that's what happens.
Exactly. And if you don't forensically clean your items, and I mean forensically, if you leave 1 grain of rice or whatever on it, it's rejected. It will not go through. So the onus on us to do the job, I mean, my view is, if government was serious about recycling or about the poison of plastic, they would just say to companies, you're banned or you've got 5 years to find an alternative to plastic, you're not making it. But they're not serious.
No, and you were making the point earlier that even if you have cardboard packaging, often the product inside is wrapped in cellophane.
Yes.
So what's the point of that?
What is the point of that? We don't know.
Well, look, Claire Muldoon is also here for the paper review with us this morning. Claire, let's start. We've been talking about it a lot this morning. You can't get away from it wherever you are, the summer heat wave. And it is a bit more than just a summer heat wave, isn't it? And this is covered in The Guardian, page 2 today.
Yeah, well, it is. But, I mean, this is GB News, and we do cover the whole of the country. And I'm afraid Scotland isn't experiencing anything of the warmth that we're getting down here in the south and the south-east.
I think it's got the warmth, but it hasn't got the sunshine.
Well, it doesn't even have the warmth. It's got rain all week.
What, rain at 22 degrees?
Yes.
Well, that's warm.
No, it's not.
That's hot rain.
Warm. It's tropical,
It's in a
suppose,
warm
but there.
shower, that is.
They'll be wanting monsoons, or they'll be needing monsoons, but no doubt Nicola Sturgeon will call it something else. But let's not talk about that because I've been blocked. Anyway, temperature set to rise above 35 degrees as Met Office extends extreme heat alert. Yeah, it's no big surprise that this country cannot cope with high temperatures, low temperatures, or anything in between everyone whinges about. This is a short-term thing, I'm sure. It's not going to last longer than a week.
You know what? Everybody doesn't whinge about it. The papers whinge about it.
Yeah, but...
Everyone does. We're whinging about it now. Everyone's saying, contact us if you're in an environment where it's really difficult for you to work, if it's really difficult for you to sleep. Come on, can we just get on with it?
If it rains, people moan about that. If it's too hot, they moan about it. As a rule, a man's a fool. When it's hot, he wants it cool. When it's cool, he wants it hot. He always wants it what it's not.
Oh, gosh.
W. Shakespeare, brackets, Mystic Mellor, close brackets.
Did you write that?
No.
No, you didn't. Sorry.
I remembered it.
Oh, well remembered.
But I'll say I wrote it if you want me to.
A ditty for all occasions. I love it. David, let's turn our attention to something...
rather more serious.
Yeah, and very serious, as you say. At the Telegraph front page, police 2 PC to stop Asian sex abuse ring.
I mean, this is a truly terrible story, even if some of it goes back, 20 years. And what it basically says is that more than 1,000 girls, and it's from the chief crime correspondent, Martin Evans, of the paper, who's a very solid chap, more than 1,000 girls were sexually abused by gangs of Asian men in Telford, while police drop cases like a hot potato for fear of inflaming racial tensions.
Now, let me tell you something. I watched this. I got my news last night from Channel 4, right? I got this and I watched this. I watched the whole report and I thought, that's terrible. Terrible, absolutely ghastly. Not once was there a mention of an Asian predilection in this. Not once.
Yeah, but it's all about Asians. That's the thing. I mean, there are plenty of sex abuse that goes on. Yeah. But the particular reason why this one isn't investigated by the police is that the people who were supposed to carry it out were Asian rings, and what they didn't want was to appear to be racist by cracking down on Asian sex offenders. Look, personally, I've managed to be mercifully free of racial prejudice, but I wouldn't
something
want,
in the
if I was
culture.
well, I know plenty of, I've got plenty of Asian friends. They wouldn't want to think that people were letting other Asians off because of that, because we've all got something to lose if sex abuse becomes, violent sex abuse becomes current in our town.
You've got media which are either afraid of reporting it or are making this judgment that it is not in some way connected to an Asian community.
Exactly, and of course this all ties in with
Rochdale, Rotherham, Oldham, Blackburn.
And the Metropolitan Police, where, this guy who actually goes and kills a girl. But, the thing about that too, it all happens where the police don't fail to... They always find a reason not to get a grip. The thing that most offended me, beyond, of course, the murder of Sarah Everard, was the fact that her killer was part of these groups of people who have their own dedicated sort of phone conversation lines, WhatsApp. And it didn't appear that the previous leadership of the Metropolitan Police did anything about that. My view is that no police officer should be allowed to gang up with a lot of his colleagues, putting appalling stuff on these chats, because you and I both know if we think awful things, but we only think it, we're embarrassed. If we think all the half a dozen guys we're working with, or the 12 people, they think that, then we're emboldened. And it was typical of the reign of Cressida Dick that she did nothing about that. Let's hope the new chap will be better.
Yeah, but going back to this story, not only was the predilection of the Asian race perpetrator not called out, but the victims themselves, these poor white working class girls, they were white and they were in poverty and they were taken, from a very young age, and they were violated time and time again. And the report yesterday said that there was at least 3 murders that could have been prevented. Could have been prevented had the police done their job. I was sitting watching the news last night with my teenage daughter, who's at Leeds University, and she turned to me and she said, "Mum, I'm not surprised." She said, "The police don't care about sexual crimes or anything." And that's such a disenfranchised young 19-year-old woman who is disenfranchised.
So she feels if something happened to her, she would be frightened or would feel it's not worthwhile reporting.
Would feel it's not worthwhile reporting. And we discussed the Sarah Everard case earlier. There's this deep-seated, not only misogyny in the police, I would say, but a constitutional racism as well. Because racism works both ways. They can't seem to call out the fact that it is the Asian grooming gangs that are carrying this out. We need to stop it, and we need to call it out for what it is.
This just seems to be fact.
It's fact. That's exactly what it is.
I'd just like to say to you, if you are Asian, this is not about you, but this is about something deep-seated within your community, or I don't know if it's a religious thing. I don't know.
But Eamonn, people don't like to use stereotypes now. We can't use them in comedy. We can't use them to say, "Oh, yeah, but you're good at sport because you are X, Y, or Z race." But the thing is, people are more than happy to use artificial intelligence and algorithms from their social media that are brought up. That, to me, is the modern-day stereotype, and we need to say it. And why are we not afraid of that?
One of the other things I think is always very interesting, the police have got very good at doing one thing, not necessarily the thing we'd want them to be able to do really well, but they do. They apologise beautifully. And so you had this chap from West Mercia Policing. "Our actions fell far short of the help and protection you should have had from us. It was unacceptable. We let you down." Wonderful. But is that it?
Yeah.
I mean, what are they going to actually do to make sure it doesn't happen?
See, everybody thinks apology is the end of the matter. And this was the undoing of Boris Johnson.
It was.
Because every time it was deny, and then admit and then apologise. It was the same pattern.
And then move back to doing the same stuff all over
so
again.
the apologies just meant nothing because they just didn't seem sincere. So they're just words.
Words.
Let's turn our attention to the Mirror, David. This story about the SAS, it was doing the rounds yesterday, this Panorama investigation by the BBC. Lots of comments coming out of the MOD in all of this. And the headline from the Mirror on this is, "Who dares keep an eye on the SAS?"
You see, this is some organisation that one imagines when one look too closely to who they are. It's called Action on Armed Violence, and talks about soldiers should face MP scrutiny. Look, I don't approve of British soldiers killing people in circumstances where they shouldn't. I also, though, don't approve of state media organisations like the BBC, if this is what they've done, and this is what the MOD say they've done, blowing up out of all proportion incidents that happen. You know, a lot of these people who criticise the SAS, have they any idea what it's like to be an SAS man, to be in the peril that they're in, and to be risking their lives all the time for the most modest of pay? And then I just think, before broadcasting organisations publish effectively the suggestion there was an assassination squad in a particular SAS unit, they need to be absolutely certain of their facts. I'm by no means certain that they are certain of their facts.
I haven't seen this programme, but I'll tell you what I have had. I've had 3 messages from former forces people who have said to me, this is nonsense, it's not the way it happens. And they also talk about what's expected of them, that the country expects them to do the dirtiest jobs available, and yet there's no consequence to it. And I just want to say that, like police officers and whatever, they all have cameras now which records everything. There's a lot of things recorded, which a lot of things, do we want them recorded? We do want our police and our security forces, whatever, to do the dirty stuff. We just don't want to hear about it.
Well, but also we want to make sure that they are accountable in some way, because there's a dangerous territory you get into if you don't investigate or have a check and balance on the special forces, because they do have this licence ultimately to act, you know, completely freely. And I think that the BBC, in their defence, they would argue that they're trying to do a public service here, and they will have had extremely high thresholds in terms of evidence and everything else in order to get it over the line in terms of broadcasting. But I think it was James Heapy yesterday saying if there is any new evidence, they absolutely must hand it over to the military police, and all of that will be considered.
But what I'm saying is, I think, Claire, there's this mock outrage. People are shocked by this. And I suddenly think, you know, who dares wins the SAS.
I was just about to say
Are you really surprised that, you know, part of their job may be to knock off a few bad guys?
Yep. I was just about to come in and say that, because we've got reality TV coming out of our ears at the moment, notwithstanding Love Island, which I'm a bit addicted to, I have to say. But you've got the likes of SAS, Who Dares Wins, and it is a great programme in terms of format, and they've now got the celebrity one too. But it breaks down these barriers of the work that these men and women do, and often is clearly very, very important, not only through intel, but actually through physical force as well. I take my hat off to them. I couldn't do it, and I don't think that the BBC should have used licence fund money to produce a programme like that. And I agree, they must have had very high thresholds in terms of what they can and can't put out, but I don't think it's helping anything.
OK.
GB Views at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at GB News. Guys, they'll be back in about 45 minutes' time.
Thank you both. Now, we've been talking a lot about the weather, unsurprisingly. Lots of people waking up this morning saying they had a terrible night's sleep. Perhaps you were one of them. And we're expecting to see record temperatures this weekend. Forecasters have put out an amber heat warning for record time. Could be, 40 degrees this weekend?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. But what does this mean for any of you working in that sort of weather? I do not envy you. We're in an air-conditioned studio. We go to Alice Porter, who's out this morning on a building site talking about the work that construction workers have to do with those hats holding in all that heat as well, Alice.
Hello there, good morning. Yes, I'm here on a construction site just in Reading, and I can tell you there's no air conditioning here. I do have my hard hat on, ready for business to find out exactly how these hot temperatures are impacting people who are working in the construction industry. And I'm joined by Thomas. I knew I was going to forget your name. I'm joined by Thomas, who is from PV James Construction Company. So just tell me, how have these hot temperatures, how has it impacted you over the last week or so?
It's affected the guys on site, obviously, and we're having to get through a hell of a lot more water. And also the materials that we're using, it's been quite a challenge because a lot of it's the humidity. It's causing a lot of challenges. Installing a ceiling like the one above us has been really quite a challenge. There's lots of movement and bowing and stuff for the timbers.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I mean, people might ignorantly think you look at a construction site, lots of very sort of tough sort of materials around, whether it's wood or metal or stone, but actually it sounds like from what you're saying, these hot temperatures, if they reach sort of 35 degrees Celsius, it can really impact the materials.
Oh yes, it could. I mean, a lot of the timber out that got hit by the heat, even when you protect it and cover it, it'll all bow out of shape, so it's unusable pretty much.
And I know, so this week MPs have been sort of looking at legislation to set a maximum temperature for people to work in. So this would be about 30 degrees Celsius or 27 degrees Celsius if you were working in something like construction. I mean, what would you say to that sort of proposal? Could that make work quite challenging?
I suppose it could affect timelines and schedules, but I mean, even at the moment, our directors and the company, they send out weather warnings to us if it's high winds or hot weather and things like that. So we're always sort of prepared a little bit for the situation. But I think having something in place might be beneficial in the long run, especially as we do seem to be getting warmer, longer summers.
And as the site manager, you've obviously got lots of people you're responsible for. I mean, what are the sort of challenges of making sure everyone is staying hydrated? I can imagine some men maybe not being completely receptive to you going around with bottles of water. Am I right?
Yeah, quite right. A lot of them are more Coca-Cola or tea, but yeah, it's also, I mean, making them not ignorant to the fact that their welfare does matter to us at the end of the day. And it's also getting home. You could work until you've really beat yourself up here during the day in the hot sun, but driving home, getting yourself home to your family is what really matters at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, and have you had any situations with any of your staff who really have become quite noticeably fatigued or dehydrated?
You do notice it in them, and it's better to have a quiet word and pull them out and say, have a break now, and you don't need to work until your allotted break. When you feel like you've had too much in this heat, go and have some time out.
Well, look, thank you so much, Thomas Robert Lamond. Really, really appreciate your time today. I'm going to be around this area speaking to different people working in different sectors to see how they're impacted by the heat. But many of them are sadly not working with air conditioning like you two sitting there.
No, I know. Well, respect.
Guilty.
respect, Alice. Thank you very much indeed. Don't know what to say, really, if you're out and about.
Thank you, I suppose.
Thank you.
Thank you, keeping the country running.
It's very good.
And be manners.
Better people than we would be. Yeah, I hate when you get sweaty. It's because it gets whiffy and it gets.
A bit like Prince Andrew. It happens very rarely.
Look at that stain.
I don't sweat, honestly. I don't
like Prince
sweat.
Andrew as well. People laugh at Prince Andrew.
I'm not a sweaty person. I've got a lot of flaws, but not.
I used to be in the gym and I used to be punished by trainers and things. You're not working hard enough. Don't sweat.
But do you know why I don't sweat? Because I'm always cold, even when it's hot. I mean, it takes a lot for me to be hot. Anyway, sorry.
Never mind,
right,
sorry. This is very important.
Oh, right, OK.
Right. So, also, I don't have smelly feet.
Oh, no, I would love to disagree, but I think I do.
No, but it's strange. That's something to do. That sweat thing's very important, so it must happen to lots of people. Right, the time is 9 minutes before 8.
We're talking about the economy. We just got those GDP figures out from the Office for National Statistics at 7 o'clock. The UK economy grew by 0.5% in May, so a little bit of good news. That's following on from 2 months of contractions. In April, it dropped by 0.2%. OK,
these are all GDP figures from the Office for National Statistics. Today, Labour will set out its plans for the economy and argue that the Conservative tax plans would rip up fiscal rules and cause public sector debt to rise.
Well, for more on all of this, let's speak to Pat McFadden, Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Very good morning to you. How can you make a comment like that when there seems to be quite disparate views amongst the 8 candidates running for Prime Minister? Certainly Kemi Badenoch and Rishi Sunak standing out quite differently from the rest of the candidates on this issue.
What's striking about the Conservative leadership contest so far is the irresponsibility running through it. It's as if the candidates were in a competition to take whatever economic credibility their party had after 12 years in power and make a big summer bonfire of it and set light to it. And each one has been tripping over one another to promise more and more unfunded tax cuts, with, for example, the current Chancellor saying that he wants to cut departmental budgets by 20%. Now, with 6.5 million people on waiting lists for the NHS, with children still trying to catch up from all the COVID lockdowns and education that they have lost, and with victims of crime having to wait longer and longer for justice in the court system, just think what 20% cuts to all those departments would mean. This is the return of a Conservative Party that simply wants to cut public services, and that's what we're seeing being played out in this leadership contest.
Who, Pat, would you like to see the Labour Party going up against? I mean, bearing in mind, you make your argument very well there, and you're saying to people, think what this actually really means. Who would be an open goal for you if they became the Conservative leader?
Well, I'm a sports fan, Eamonn, like yourself, I think, and I always say you can only beat the team in front of you. So I don't mind who the Conservative Party picks, because we've now got 12 years of a government record. We've got 12 years of low growth. We've got a big report out today showing that average household incomes for middle income families here in the UK are now over £8,000 a year behind comparable countries like France, Germany and the Netherlands. That's not always been the case. In the early part of the century, we were roughly on a par with these countries. So year on year, we've been falling behind, and what we need is a proper long-term plan for better economic growth to make the country more prosperous and to make your viewers more prosperous. And that's what we're putting in place, and frankly, whoever the Conservative Party pick for their leader, we'll carry on doing that job.
But Pat, that making ourselves more prosperous, it works in two ways. You've got the way that, a lot of people who may support you say, cut VAT on petrol, help us through various benefits and whatever. No doubt that has to be done. And then you'll get another set of people who would say, yeah, let's just keep that money in my own pocket. Both will achieve the sort of same thing. They'll make people feel better off. Why is your way better?
Well, I wouldn't characterise our way in the way that you've described it there. Our way is for proper, productive, long-term growth. So let me give you a couple of examples. Two or three things we'd do right now. We would cut business rates to help businesses who are really suffering with this inflation, cost of living crisis and their own rising costs. We'd pay for that this year through an increase in the digital services tax, which is already in place. We would act to help the 500,000 people who've left the labour market during COVID back to work, because we've got staffing problems all over the country. Everywhere you go, you see this help wanted signs. And we'd also help people in the long term with these rising energy costs, a proper programme of home insulation, energy efficiency. So you're not just helping people with this year's bills, you're actually taking action to provide good jobs around the country and help people with their bills in the longer term. It's not just quick fixes we need, it's a long-term plan for better economic growth. That's what the country needs. And when I look at the Conservative leadership contest, the truth is the argument's too small, it's too trivial. It shouldn't just be about a Dutch auction on unfunded tax cuts. It should be about a proper plan for better economic growth. And that is the huge missing hole in the middle of this Tory leadership contest.
Sorry to interrupt you, we're almost out of time. Just briefly, if you will, Boris Johnson yesterday disallowing, if you've used that language, there's no confidence vote in him. I know that's not conventional, but from a Labour perspective, it was mischief-making, wasn't it, trying to embarrass a mutinous Tory party?
No, we feel that if Boris Johnson's own ministers and MPs have lost confidence with him, then Parliament should have had a right to express its view on that. Now, his calculation will be entirely cynical. He'll be thinking this doesn't matter to people outside the Westminster postcode. But even since he announced he's standing down, we've had revelations about an unauthorised meeting with ex-KGB agent Alexander Lebedev. We've had another story about him trying to get a job for a woman he had some sort of relationship with. You can't allow this man to carry on with no accountability for another 2 months. That's why we wanted the motion, and clearly he's running scared of that.
Pat McFadden, appreciate your thoughts. Thank you very much indeed. Pat is the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury there, live from College Green in Westminster. We thank him for his time. We thank you for tuning in, for listening to us on radio and television, and we're back with more on the latest on the Tory leadership race after the weather.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update. Plenty of sunshine around for the next couple of days. Not as hot as the last few days, but we could see temperatures rising further as we head into the weekend. High pressure has been dominating, one area pushing away, but another one moving back in. But it's moving back in behind this cold front that's been drifting south, and that will introduce slightly cooler conditions for most of us today. It's a little fresher out there this morning, still very warm and humid in the south. But further north, we've got a fairly brisk wind continuing to bring some showers over the Highlands and the Northern Isles and the Western Isles. Maybe one or two showers getting into southwest Scotland during the day too. But for most places, dry and fine after the early cloud tending to break up across the south. Here, still pretty warm, 27, 28 Celsius, but not the 30 or more we've seen over recent days. And further north, generally fresher, more comfortable conditions, less humid, temperatures in the high teens, low 20s. Through this evening, we'll see a bit more cloud spilling into northwest England and Northern Ireland, with maybe one or two showers here. We'll keep some showers in the far north of Scotland as well, but further south it does stay dry. It'll be a cooler night again. Still temperatures staying in the teens, but lower than the night just gone. Into Thursday, and it's a fine summer's day across southern England, South Wales, plenty of sunshine. Further north, a bit more cloud to come tomorrow over particularly northwest England, western Scotland and Northern Ireland, where there will be some outbreaks of rain at times. Much of eastern Scotland and to the east of the Pennines staying dry and bright. Plenty of sunshine, as I say, in the south, and we've lost the heat, so temperatures, although potentially getting into the high 20s across the southeast, mostly high teens, low 20s. So close to average for the time of year, and it will feel that much fresher than the past few days. However, the heat is expected to build again through this weekend. The Met Office do have extreme heat warning in place covering both Sunday and Monday.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
The race for number 10 down to 8 candidates ahead of the first ballot, which takes place this afternoon.
Good morning. It's just after 8 o'clock. It's Wednesday, the 13th of July, and this is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Leading the news this morning, the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and the former Chancellor Rishi Sunak lead the race to become the next leader of the Conservative Party and the future Prime Minister. 8 candidates remain ahead of the first ballot, which takes place this afternoon.
The UK economy has returned to a period of growth after 2 months of contraction, according to new GDP numbers released in the past hour. The figures show growth across all major areas and exceed economists' expectations.
The Met Office has issued an extreme heat warning as temperatures rise across the UK. Meteorologists have predicted that this weekend could see the hottest day ever on record, with temperatures reaching over 40 degrees.
And Heathrow Airport has asked airlines to stop selling tickets over the summer as it struggles to keep up with demand. It comes as the airport announces it'll cap the amount of passengers that can fly through its terminals.
Will that affect you? Remember, when they talk about summer flights, they mean domestic flights as well. If you're flying to Manchester or Aberdeen or Glasgow or Belfast or whatever, you are included in those summer flights. So they're reducing, they say they're reducing by 4,000 passengers a day, which doesn't sound a lot, but I suppose
it doesn't sound a lot, but at least it prevents those people turning up and then having their flights cancelled and all the chaos that involves with lost luggage and all the rest of it.
It's the blooming chaos. I mean, if you've got your plans made already and you say, I'm heading to Rome on that day or Ibiza or whatever it happens to be. I mean, I've already experienced this with Belfast, with my flight being moved around all the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, the fault is not the staff that you've got there. The fault is the staff they haven't got there, which means the fault is Heathrow Airport, which is owned by somebody in Spain somewhere or whatever. So the idea that people think these are all great British institutions, they're not at all.
Well, that's Eamonn's thoughts. Let us know your thoughts this morning. GBViews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews as well. And we're also on the lookout for a People's Champion, aren't we?
Yes, trust you to see the nice side of things and talk about the nice side, because that's very, very important. Whoever this People's Champion is, it has to be somebody nice and kind and lovely and better people than we are. That's what we think, yeah?
Yourself.
Yeah, but, you know, people who go out there and they just do, and they visit people and they do things for people and they're heroes within your community. Yeah. But we're going to big them up, okay? All you have to do is to email us, and you email us with the subject heading Breakfast People's Champion, okay? We'll do the rest. Thank you.
So to our top story this hour, and the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and the former Chancellor Rishi Sunak are leading the Conservative leadership contest as Tory MPs prepare to vote in the first ballot today.
8 candidates remain in the race. Sajid Javid, Grant Shapps and Raymond Christie, whoever he was anyway, no one ever knew who he was, dropped out yesterday. Candidates that secure at least 30 votes will then proceed to the next round. So the vote will be held about 1:30 this afternoon. The next round is tomorrow. Final 2 chosen then.
Yeah, brutal knockout procedure. Let's get the details on all of this from Freddie Gray. He's the deputy editor of The Spectator.
No, let's get the dirt. Let's not get the details.
Okay.
They all hate each other, obviously, don't they?
It's pretty nasty, yes. I think it's about as nasty an atmosphere in the Tory party as I remember. And I think it speaks to one of the failings of Boris Johnson's premiership, which is that he left a sort of vacuum of leadership and a vacuum of talent. And actually, I think the candidates yesterday put forward surprisingly good messages, considering the absence of an alternative agenda, the absence of an alternative vision. I mean, one of the reasons it took so long for Boris to be got rid of was that everybody thought that there's no obvious alternative. I think a lot of Conservatives are worried there's still no obvious alternative.
The sad thing, I think, is that some of these people we just don't get to know. You know, the votes will happen quick, they happen fast, they happen brutally, the cuts are in there, and we're just beginning to hear about people. I mean, I mentioned that man whose name I can't remember there. Well, whoever he was, he might have been quite good, I don't know.
Might have been, but he had no experience, and I think that's probably a bit of a black mark. But it's interesting, we've been talking a little bit about the kingmakers and all this. Everybody talks endlessly about Nadine Dorries and Jacob Rees-Mogg, the power of the Daily Mail, especially with the membership who will have the final say on the last 2. Did The Spectator have a view on who they would like to see, or do you care to make a prediction over which way you think the whole thing's going to go?
We try not to back... We sort of think journalists shouldn't be in the business of kind of backing people, and we try not to get too into that. I mean, it's obvious that Rishi Sunak is the front runner. He's the most organised. He has the most.
Does that make him the most at risk in many ways?
I think so, certainly. And I think the interesting dynamic of the race is that the MPs vote in the first round, and then it goes to a second round, which is the membership. And the membership think very differently, very, very differently to the MPs on a lot of things.
So the MPs will whittle it down to two. And they are presented then to the membership.
To the membership. And the membership do not like Rishi Sunak. Very much, it seems. And in fact, the polling, there's a website called Conservative Home, which is a good barometer of the membership. And the polling there suggests that Sunak would lose to almost everyone apart from Tom Tugendhat, which points to another interesting thing, which is the membership seem very keen on a woman.
Right.
And if you take the football manager theory of, you go from different types of personality to from one to another, that might apply. In that, what's the opposite of Boris Johnson? A womanizer, shambolic, reckless. It's a competent, efficient woman.
And is that Liz Truss?
Well, depends who you ask. She's very unpopular among certain MPs. She may manage to get herself into the first round. That will be the challenge for her. If she gets into the second round, polling suggests she will storm it. She'll smash Rishi Sunak.
Well, we mentioned some of the names that are already supporting her, Nadine Dorries, Jacob Rees-Mogg. Interesting that this morning the Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, has come out for Rishi Sunak. He's already got Dominic Raab and Grant Shapps backing him. And we've been talking a lot about, not only is this about who's going to lead the party, but for a lot of these people, they're talking about their own careers. They're thinking about, I'd quite like to be Chancellor, so if I support this person, I might get this position in a future cabinet. There's a lot of politics going on in all of this.
Well, yesterday at Rishi Sunak's event, you could almost sort of sniff the power sort of circling around the place. There was a sort of... all the ambition was channeling into that. But people forget that, in the last two races, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, the front runner did win. However, traditionally, it's the person who wields the knife who is then the front runner, who is then axed, who is then sacrificed. And it's the second, more insurgent candidate that appeals to the membership more.
The way the voting's going at the minute, that second candidate could be Penny Mordaunt, could be Liz Truss, could be Tom Tugendhat, or it could be Kemi Badenoch. And bearing in mind what you said there, that's 3 women out of 4. Whew.
Well, I would bet, if I was a betting man, and I am a betting man, so I'll say it, I would bet on a woman being the next Prime Minister,
So let's talk about what Penny Mordaunt has and what Kemi Badenoch has. We've talked about Liz Truss.
Well, Penny Mordaunt has more parliamentary support. She's got a more organised campaign. She's offered people jobs. Kemi Badenoch's very much a nascent campaign. It's not really prepared at all. What she does is she speaks to Conservatives who are interested in the culture wars, who want to fight the culture wars. And as a black woman, she's able to do that better because she doesn't face accusations of being a racist.
Right.
That appeals to a lot of Conservatives and that excites them. Against that, you've got to put the fact that she's never really done any serious job. Can you actually have a Prime Minister who's never done a really serious job in government? I don't think you can.
OK. A word about the man, Tom Tugendhat?
Well, he's, again, a more of an establishment force. He has some of Boris's old support, but he's much more of a sort of conventional politician.
Yes.
He's almost a bit boring.
Yeah, but you see, we had a viewer on this morning who basically said, yeah, I would very much like him, I could support him. And we've heard the same about Ben Wallace and Tobias Ellwood. People like this military standing. But I put it to you, could these people be too principled to be in cabinet?
I wouldn't accuse Tom Tugendhat of being too principled. I think he's quite capable of stabbing people in the back and being the snake that he's needed to be in politics.
What do you base that on?
I think he's well known to be quite an operator. Politics is a dirty business, and he's good at it.
He made a highly impressive speech, though, in the wake of the Afghan withdrawal, didn't he? Obviously from his military experience, but on principles, and I think that remains in the minds of a lot of people, that he really came out with the moral high ground in that. I think a lot of people remember him for that speech in the Commons.
I think quite a few military men think that he exaggerates his military record, so there's that set against it. But certainly true, Boris was always keen to sort of bring in the army wherever possible. There's a sense among the membership that the only people that can sort this out are servicemen.
Yeah.
What would a Liz Truss premiership look like?
I think it would look like sort of global Brexit on steroids, low taxation, a kind of global growth strategy that would be very ambitious. I think it would be car crash in terms of diplomacy at times. She has a tendency to put her foot in her mouth, as they say.
Who do you think she'd have as her Chancellor? Jacob Rees-Mogg?
Oh, very good question. I think she might go for somebody more steady, like maybe even a Tugendhat.
Interesting.
Freddie, lovely talking to you. Thank you very much indeed for your opinions on all of that. And
we're going to go to Rob Baldock now. He's a
I
GB
forgot
News
about him.
viewer. He's
Oh,
from
right.
Lincolnshire.
So Freddie's
and he's
staying
on the
here.
line. He's waiting. Yeah, stay well not. We're going to bring you in, Rob. Lovely to have you on the show this morning. Who would you like to see in number 10?
Well, I wanted to see Ben Wallace recently, but he's withdrawn from the race. So I've got to be honest, I think Penny Morgan's the person. But a more concern is not who's the Prime Minister, it's who's at number 11, because they hold sway over the economy. It seems that Rishi Sunak kiboshed everything that Boris Johnson was trying. I think they've got to take an enormous amount of gamble to actually stimulate the economy. And the first thing they've got to do is reduce capital gains tax. They've got to increase the write-offs so that business spends money on capital equipment so that people manufacture in this country. But in addition, we then got to pay them to get to work. So you've got to reduce VAT on fuel. Now, all this comes back to a chancellor. So I think it's as much about who the Prime Minister is going to appoint as Chancellor as who's going to be the Prime Minister themselves.
Trying to find my list of who is supporting Penny Mordaunt. She's been proposed by Andrea Leadsom, and I know she's obviously had quite a lot of public vocal support from David Davis. But do you think Andrea Leadsom could perhaps be her Chancellor?
I don't think so, no.
What about Rishi Sunak as her Chancellor?
One of the problems a lot of people have is they were anti-Brexit, and we do not want a Remainer as Chancellor. And therefore, Tom Tugendhat is a terrible choice because he would capitulate to everything the EU wanted.
Liz Truss, of course, was a Remainer, and looks like she could end up winning the whole thing. Do you think that matters?
No, I think it does matter. I think she's a diplomatic disaster waiting to happen. I think we need someone like Penny Mordaunt who has got the experience, who's been in cabinet and has got diplomatic skills.
What do you remember her for when she was in cabinet? Because I have to say her stint as Defence Secretary really passed me by.
Well, that's the whole point. She hasn't been high profile. So perhaps, like Liz Truss, when Liz Truss was Trade Secretary, she got things done without making a big fuss about it. Because I really don't know much about Penny Mordaunt at all. I know even less about Kemi, because she seems to be obsessed about cultural issues, and I'm concerned that she is not the right person. We need somebody who's going to be concerned with the economy. Nothing else matters at the moment.
Rob, could I ask you, there you are in Lincolnshire, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was Thatcher territory. She was born there, wasn't she, in Grantham?
Yeah, about 40 miles from me.
Do you hark back to her? Is it that legacy? I mean, you talk about people who maybe more progressive in their views. Is it not time for a new Conservative Party to move on, to look ahead rather than look back?
No, I think she was a wonderful Prime Minister. I think she had the guts to do what we need to have done. But I think we've got to temper what needs to be done with the fact that universal credit must be increased. You've got to pay people a living wage, not just an existing wage, a living wage, so they can live, not survive. You've also got to pay them to get to these places. They're going to produce the equipment that's going to be bought by industry. So VAT on fuel has got to come off. We've got to get rid of VAT off energy bills. That, I think, was an EU directive. Why are we still following it? We're out of the EU.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Rob, so what do you do? What's your history? Why are we talking to you? Tell me about your background.
I'm retired. I used to be an insurance broker and a forklift truck driver. I've done lots of different things. I worked in a care home. What do I do now? I'm off with the gardening, I guess. But
that's very nice.
You've done a lot. And do you find it difficult at the moment? I mean, when we talk to people, the cost of living really does matter to them. And just listening to you talking then, I get the impression you may be fearful for the future or feeling the pinch.
I'm fearful for my children's future because they will feel the pinch. I won't. I've made sure I don't. What I have got is a problem with transport. We have massive fuel bills up here. We're in the middle of a rural county, and we have no public transport. So what are we supposed to do? I'm not able to walk to a nearest bus stop. I have to use my car, and that costs me money for petrol.
Pretty good hearing from you, Rob. And we're taking your opinions into account there from Lincolnshire.
Friskany, no less.
Friskany. Sounds lovely. We've never been there. Is that worth visiting?
Friskany is a huge parish, but a very small village. It has
sounds
one
lovely.
shop.
Oh, it
One
sounds
shop, one
delightful.
pub. It's just Skegness and Boston.
So you
It's
need that
just
bus
half
to get to the. You need that bus to get to the bank and the post office and various things like that. Then I assume.
We have to do everything online, but we have a lousy broadband signal because we're in the country.
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
Has that heat wave hit you up there? Are you going to be in the sunshine gardening later?
No, I'm not. In fact, before you came online, I was actually out in the garden because when it's cool, you can get things done. And I came in the kitchen and sat behind open French doors to get some draft in.
Fair enough.
Stay well, mate.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Rob. Really
Good talking to you.
appreciate it.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Don't know now if the economic situation, we've got people's temperature up as well. Laurie Laird on those GDP figures that have come in this morning. So there is some growth.
You both.
Good seeing
A
you.
lot of growth, much more growth than anybody predicted. And you know how I say, please don't make me come and say negative things. Finally, we have some really, really good economic numbers. But let me temper that a little bit. A lot of the improvement in GDP was because people have stopped staying in, they've stopped quarantine. They're actually going back to the GP. And the way that healthcare is measured in GDP, this has become a big, big boost to GDP. It's a little bit worse when you look at things called consumer-facing services. That's if we go to hotels, if we go to restaurants, if we go to the shops. That did quite poorly. That contracted a lot. So there was one anomaly, which is our going to the GP more often, that kept us in the black this month around. But because May was so strong, it looks like we will probably not contract in the second quarter. So it means that this talk of recession is still some way off.
OK, so the talk of recession is, potentially pushed down the road a little bit, or maybe altogether.
It
Who
still
knows?
may
I don't
happen,
want to
but
talk
yeah.
the country down. What are the implications for the Bank of England, for example? Because we know that every 7 weeks they're looking at interest rates and everybody's predicting we're going to see them go up and up and up. Are they linked, or, will it be a better picture?
Usually they are. Usually the Bank of England looks at a whole range of things. They look at inflation, they look at wage growth, they look at GDP. Right now they're looking at one thing, and that's inflation, as measured by what's called the Consumer Price Index. They're looking at average earnings as well. But the fact that if the economy were to go into recession, Andrew Bailey, the head of the Bank of England, has said, if we go into recession, we're still going to tackle inflation. Our job is not to stimulate growth. Our job is to keep inflation at 2%. Yep, that's what we're going to do. Doesn't matter what else is happening. But these good May GDP numbers, I think, will embolden the bank. I think they'll be much more likely to do a big interest rate hike next time around.
OK, they'll embolden the bank. How will they affect, if you don't mind me foraying back into politics with all of this, there's so much talk about fiscal policy and fiscal literacy when it comes to the leaders. And, will Rishi Sunak feel that personally a bit vindicated with these results?
I have never seen a leadership contest that has been so solely focused on economics and so solely focused on tax. And they're, it feels like they're outbidding each other. Well, this one's going to cut corporate tax. This one's going to cut VAT. This one's going to cut VAT on fuel. All of a sudden, we're all tax experts. Rishi Sunak, I don't know that, and particularly listening to Rob, the guest who was just there, his contention that the public finances aren't healthy enough for any kind of a tax cut or any kind of a spending spurge. I'm not sure about that. It doesn't feel like the population is coming along with Rishi Sunak in that way. And I think the candidates are certainly trying to appeal to that narrow group of people that vote for the Conservative Party leader. They're looking at tax cuts that will go across the whole economy rather than things like an uplift in universal credit that Rob was mentioning, the guest was mentioning. It looks like tax policy is aimed at the people who will vote in that leadership election, people who are already registered Conservative voters.
Interesting.
OK. Laurie, thank you. Anything you'd like to add, Freddie? Just in the economy?
Well, I think tax cuts are the easy part of any Tory sell. The hard part is shrinking the size of the state. And I'm not sure any candidate, possibly Nadeem Zahawi's done a bit, but I'm not sure any candidate's laying out a real sort of Conservative vision for making...
Well, there you see the headline, front of the Telegraph from Rishi Sunak, I will run the economy like Thatcher if I win, he says.
Well, that's a promising line for all members, but I'm not sure a lot of members feel the same way when they look at how he ran the economy the last couple of years.
OK. Freddie, leave it there. Thank you. Freddie Gray is the deputy editor of The Spectator, and also you heard from economist Laurie Laird there. Thank you very much.
A few views to share with you. Emily says, I'm baffled as to why certain MPs clubbed together to oust Boris Johnson only to campaign for Rishi Sunak to be his replacement. Carol says it's early in the game. People may not wish to declare publicly. It will be more interesting after today's vote to see who truly sticks to their word.
But you see that Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson thing, yeah. Freddie, just to bring you back in again. Emily, let me explain this to you. They all hate each other. So the thing is that Sunak's basically saying, I was an unwilling accomplice in all of this. The bad things about me being Chancellor were forced on me by Boris, I presume he's saying.
I think, Eamonn, I mean, it's unusual for someone to be more cynical than me. But I do think it was quite nice of Rishi to say, you know, I thought he has a good heart. You know, it could have been quite easy to stab Boris in the back.
He said he was one of the most extraordinary people he'd ever met.
Well, I mean, I've met Boris and he is extraordinary, whether you like him or not. He's an extraordinary force in British politics.
Would you like to work for him?
As a journalist, yes. In politics, definitely not.
Are you
but I don't want
miss
to be in
him
politics.
from public life?
As a journalist, again, yes.
I think
Great copy.
we were just talking about that this morning in the newsroom this morning. I mean, you know, he's been on the headlines almost every day for the last 7 months. It's going to be a big hole in British politics.
It's going to be terrible. And when you look at this sort of shower of mediocrity, we're all going to miss him much more, I think.
We're going to miss people like you. Come back and talk again and commentate
Freddie
again.
Gray. Thank you so much.
Telling us the way it is there. He's the man at The Spectator. He's Freddie Gray. The time, 23 minutes past 8. We're going to bring you up to date now with the news situation. Look at this CCTV footage. Absolutely shocking. It shows the events of the shooting that took place in the school in Texas in May. The police, you will see as well here coming shortly, stopping to use hand sanitizer as the 18-year-old gunman, Salvador Ramos, entered the school carrying a rifle.
Low-income households will receive £326 this Thursday, the first payment meant to ease the cost of living crisis. Those who receive government support, such as universal credit and job seekers allowance, may be eligible to receive the payout, which will total £650 after a second sum is given to them in the autumn.
Twitter is suing Elon Musk for a £37 billion deal, which they say he broke to buy the social media platform. Twitter's asking an American court to order the Tesla owner to complete the merger at the agreed share price.
Now, new research has suggested that our gut health could actually be the key to improving, wait for it, our mental health.
Yeah, this is all the talk. You know, when you look up the medical websites and things, it is about gut health, and a lot of it's about selling you products to improve your gut. And when you talk about things like gut instinct, apparently it is very important.
Oh, yeah, well, Massachusetts General Hospital in the States have published research which suggests that microorganisms in our guts helps to regulate things like our attention span and our emotional stability. Well, to tell us more is Dr. Joshua Woolrich. Very good morning. Welcome back to the programme. Look, this is a big growth area, isn't it? Certainly in terms of the industry surround it all. Is there any, reliable science to back it up?
Some.
Okay.
So we have all become a little bit obsessed with gut health, and some of it is very valid. We've become more understanding of just the impact that our gut can have on our overall health. But we are now selling all of the products under the sun with claims that they are going to do things such as cure disease or cure mental health and things like that. So I think it's just important to take some of that with a pinch of salt and be a bit more understanding.
OK, but what would you take to keep good gut health?
Gut health in general, it tends not to be very sexy. It tends to just be more veg, more variety, more colour and less red meat, really, which is kind of the stuff that we've heard before, but it is true. The veg is the main one. So all of that fibre, all of that veg actually feeds the gut bacteria.
Why would red meat be bad?
Red meat is something that's got what we call nitrites in it, and that's something that we know has an impact on the cells in the gut lining. And so it does, if you have lots of it, can increase the risk of things like bowel cancer. So it is just something we know is worth reducing.
Gut is an awful word. It's an awful word. People think gut, gut instinct.
I think of a big fat person. I think of a gut. Oh, he's got a big gut.
Gut. But the thing about it is, are you as scientists reassessing the usefulness of the gut or where it stands in the body as regarding, we're talking about mental health there as well, we're talking about physical health. Is it the engine room?
Well, I think we've always known it was important by itself, but I think we're starting to understand a bit more the impact it can have on other body systems. We all know the feeling of kind of getting that fluttering in our stomach when we're super anxious or when we're nervous about something. And there's evidence that it can work the other way around as well. So if we have, it's difficult to class what an unhealthy gut would be, but if we have a diet very low in vegetables, we may find that might be having an impact on how we feel on a day-to-day basis.
Is it, stating the obvious to think that we need to think about our health more holistically? It shouldn't be rocket science that your gut and your brain are linked, but also that everything is linked with your mental health, your general physical health, exercise, all the rest of it. It just comes down to moderation and just respecting and listening to your body and all of those kinds of things. I mean, do we not think about our health holistically enough?
I think there's a couple of things. I think one is that we're bombarded by a lot of misinformation on a daily basis, and we're told all sorts of things, right? We're told that vegetables are going to kill us. We're told that vegetables are really good for us. We're told meat is the only thing we should be eating. We're told that meat's going to kill us. So it's quite hard to understand what that holistic health can look like. And there's the other thing there that actually a lot of this stuff is actually quite out of our control. We know that some of the biggest impacts on our overall health and also some of the biggest impacts on our mental health are things like our socioeconomic status and poverty.
Yeah.
And so you can eat as much veg as you like, but it's not going to change the fact you don't own a fridge.
Sure.
Is kombucha the holy grail, though? Sorry to interrupt.
What is what?
Kombucha the holy grail, because
No,
my
it's not.
husband's convinced this is the way to perfect gut health.
If it tastes nice, it's great.
You don't
It'll
think there's
help
any
you hydrated.
benefits from all the...
So it depends.
Whatever there is in that.
There's different types. There's one that has what's called the mother, so it's got all of the kind of bacteria still in it. And that one, I'm sure, is acting a bit like a probiotic.
Right.
And probiotics are great, but they don't outdo the need to have a general balanced diet as well.
So an additional thing.
Okay.
Good
Thank
stuff.
you. Thank you very much indeed. Can a healthier gut boost your mood?
Or another way to boost your mood.
You get taking those probiotics.
Nothing wrong with my mood. Another way to boost your mood
is
if you're in a relationship. Live in separate houses. That worked for Jessica and Leo. There's an article about them in The Sun today. They claim that living separately has saved their relationship.
So they still have a relationship,
Still together.
just not under the same roof.
Yeah, they just say they get on better, they don't argue as much, they enjoy and appreciate each other more. What do you think?
Well, I know a man who, when he was dating a certain woman and she lived, 5 miles away from her, so he was very happy. It was the best time of their relationship. I know that man. Do you know anybody?
Yeah, well, my husband and I had the best relationship when he lived in Amsterdam and I lived in the UK.
Yeah, because there was that anticipation, wasn't there, of meeting up. And you know what they say, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
But I don't think it's sustainable. But we wish you well, Jessica and Leo.
Might be the future. Might be. Going through the papers very, very shortly, David Miller and Claire Muldoon. Hope we can have your company right after this.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update. Plenty of sunshine around for the next couple of days. Not as hot as the last few days, but we could see temperatures rising further as we head into the weekend. High pressure has been dominating, one area pushing away, but another one moving back in. But it's moving back in behind this cold front that's been drifting south, and that will introduce slightly cooler conditions for most of us today. It's a little fresher out there this morning, still very warm and humid in the south. But further north, we've got a fairly brisk wind continuing to bring some showers over the Highlands and the Northern Isles and the Western Isles. Maybe 1 or 2 showers getting into southwest Scotland during the day too. But for most places, dry and fine after the early cloud tending to break up across the south. Here, still pretty warm, 27, 28 Celsius, but not the 30 or more we've seen over recent days. And further north, generally fresher, more comfortable conditions, less humid, temperatures in the high teens, low 20s. Through this evening, we'll see a bit more cloud spilling into northwest England and Northern Ireland, with maybe 1 or 2 showers here. We'll keep some showers in the far north of Scotland as well, but further south it does stay dry. It'll be a cooler night again. Still temperatures staying in the teens, but lower than the night just gone. Into Thursday, and it's a fine summer's day across southern England, South Wales, plenty of sunshine. Further north, a bit more cloud to come tomorrow over particularly northwest England, western Scotland and Northern Ireland, where there will be some outbreaks of rain at times. Much of eastern Scotland and to the east of the Pennines staying dry and bright. Plenty of sunshine, as I say, in the south. And we've lost the heat. So temperatures, although potentially getting into the high 20s across the southeast, mostly high teens, low 20s. So close to average for the time of year, and it will feel that much fresher than the past few days. However, the heat is expected to build again through this weekend. The Met Office do have extreme heat warning in place, covering both Sunday and Monday.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio,
On digital, absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
We are going through the papers this morning with the former Conservative Chief Secretary to the Treasury, David Mellor, and the broadcaster, Claire Muldoon, for one last look at your Wednesday morning newspapers. And we are talking, as all of the front pages are this morning, about that leadership contest that is ongoing. The front page of the Daily Mail attacking Rishi Sunak. It really seems as though they are gunning for him at the moment.
Yeah, I think this is... the Conservative Party is trespassing on the good nature of the British people. First of all, we have that farce with Boris, and then we have... Boris, almost like you have to have a sort of send a lot of army people in to remove him from number 10. And now they're having this election contest, a lot of it involving people who aren't even household names in their own front rooms. And now they all appear to be picking on Rishi Sunak. Now, in my opinion, Rishi Sunak was installed by Boris Johnson. He has done a decent technical job as Chancellor. But it seems that's not what they want, socialist taxes. The person who is going to impose socialist taxes, and who has the highest level of proportion of the national wealth taken in taxes, is Boris, because Boris spent money. It was his automatic reflex. And this business about Rishi blasted on socialist taxes, it's the wrong charge against the wrong man. But it's quite frightening, the level of economic illiteracy in which this conversation is being conducted by people who aspire to be the Prime Minister of this country. I could get quite depressed, actually, if I worked at it. Yeah, no, what was the phrase that Freddie Gray just used when he talked about the remaining list of contenders? He said this... Oh, I can't think of it. Anyway, he didn't rate them very highly. Yeah, it was a brilliant phrase. It's escaped me, sorry. I'll come back with that anecdote just as soon as I can.
Let's move on now to coverage of, not that you'll see much coverage of the 12th of July parades yesterday throughout Northern Ireland. Claire, you want to make a remark about this?
Well, I do, actually, and I've taken it from the Belfast Telegraph, Belfast paper. Yesterday was the 12th of July, and for those that didn't watch GB News yesterday, there would have been no other coverage on any other mainstream media other than GB News, and that was the Battle of the Boyne celebrations that the unionists call for, not only in Northern Ireland, but in Glasgow too. And I just want to say, notwithstanding the fact that, yes, I am a Catholic, or a Taig, as the Orangemen would like to describe me as, if this was any other marches against or purporting hate or racial slurs against any other religious orders, be it Muslims, be it Jews, it would not be allowed. Why, in this day and age, is it allowed for Protestants to celebrate such a divisive battle back in 1690 when King William of Orange overthrew the Catholic king? Why on earth is this still being allowed? And I'll tell you something else. Sorry, Eamonn, I don't want to hold anything up on this, but I've got a daughter over there, and she said that people are allowed to drink during the day out on the streets for the Battle of the Boyne celebrations. You're not allowed to do that for Paddy's Day. The amount of littered in Belfast apparently is absolutely disgusting. And this is ongoing, and it's allowed. And to be honest with you, I'm quite surprised that GB News gave it such a format and gave it such a prominent role in yesterday's news.
Well, see, the thing I felt all the way through my time in politics, and I, by the way, am not very hot prot, OK? So I can speak with great authority about how awful these orange people are, because as far as I'm concerned, insofar as I have a religion, it's got nothing to do with my politics.
Yeah.
And it's not something I parade down the streets, because what it is, it's a provocation to those who don't believe in it. And there are people who say, well, aren't they entitled to provoke their neighbours? Well, I think in a Northern Ireland context, they actually are not.
Yes.
But the other worry is that, what are we doing? You know, we're going to the wall for Northern Ireland over our relationship with the EU, even though we're going to the wall on behalf of the democratic unionists who are refusing to participate in a communal government. And I keep thinking to myself, why do we allow ourselves? This is the tail wagging the dog in a quite offensive way. And I think there should be some quid pro quos here. And one of the quid pro quos for supporting what is now a Protestant minority in Northern Ireland is that they should not do these Battle of the Boyne nonsense, because it's totally out of line with normal expectations.
It may be,
totally
but it's
out of date.
Well, it's not going to change. I do say, in defence of the Orange Order, they will say this is a recognition and a celebration of Ulster Scots heritage, and the police. Although a lot of things like the bonfire nights are far from perfect, in my experience, they've changed quite a lot over the years. And the Assistant Chief Constable says, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of those involved for their help in making this one of the safest and most peaceful 12th of July events in recent memory. And maybe there is some progress on that front. Let us know what you think. Get in touch. gbnews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at gbnews.
OK, let's turn our attention to holiday chaos. Heathrow ruining everybody's summers, David, and this is it.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at the Sun. Heathrow caps passengers, 1,000 flights to be cancelled. Now, what I don't understand is why haven't they got across on top of this? I mean, plainly, they let too many people go. And I was listening to what you were saying earlier, Eamonn. This is a great British airport owned by a lot of Spaniards.
On airport slot rules.
Sorry, we've got somebody's voice popped up, which is now popped down again.
Right. So basically, you have to ask yourself, why is Heathrow stymied as it is? It's difficult enough to for some people to cope with the existing number of cancellations. Now, more flights would be cancelled, but don't you think the idea is that once people are alerted, as they were a couple of months ago, to how bad it is, they're then supposed to solve it? This mob seem to be just wanting to make it worse, and this story in the Sun actually is one of many that actually prove the fact that anyone who goes on holiday this summer is taking a huge risk. Well, it shouldn't be like that.
And these airports, all they want to do is make more and more money. So they're charging passengers to drop off people outside. So what does it cost? Is it £5 quid?
£5 at Heathrow.
Yeah, under
£5
under the pretence that this is good for the environment. Then they charge the airlines landing slots and parking and things at their runways as well, to the point where the airlines will say, well, stuff this for a game of Marlies, I'm off to Exeter or wherever else they want to be.
To the regional airports.
Yeah, there should be more regional airports,
I
not
agree
less.
with you. But there is also a further backstory here. I spoke to someone from British Airways and they said that the flights that they will be cancelling will be flights that are regular increased flights, like 10 times a day flights to Barcelona, Madrid. They're not going to cancel the flights to Turkey from Gatwick because they're only once a week or whatever. But they also, what we're now getting, in which we're very blinkered in this country since Brexit, because we don't like to talk about the B word. We also don't like to think that anything is happening other in Europe that might be affecting other parts of Europe badly, like the fact that German air traffic controls and French air traffic controls, there was a bit of a muddle last week, but it wasn't reported here. All it meant was there was flights that were delayed from here because of that. And it's never reported because it doesn't want to be seen as a European stroke Brexit.
It's a state of chassis, absolutely. If they're not, your baggage mightn't arrive. Your plane, you're thankful if your plane's only been delayed by 90 minutes or something. You're absolutely thankful. You're thankful if your baggage comes off the conveyor belt as well. But then this was all started by companies like EasyJet, which then made, and Ryanair, they made being uncomfortable and being packed in. It was the way they used to treat football supporters, right? Yes. So now, of course, then people become grateful that they're actually getting away on time.
Yep.
So the whole standard has gone down, and it's a pity that it used to be something you would save up for, look forward to going, and you were treated well. But now, David, and I do think football had this lesson, you treat people badly and you'll get bad reaction as a result.
Well, for me, we mentioned British Airways. That's also owned by a Spanish dominant.
Yeah.
And you keep thinking to yourselves, it would be quite nice. We Brits are well capable, as we well know from our government, of making a terrible Horlicks of almost anything we turn our hand to. But why can't we mess up our airport? Why can't we mess up our airline? Why do we need to import Spaniards to do it, At least, and who knows, we might drop on our knees and suddenly it gets a bit better. No evidence of that at the moment.
Claire, what do you want to talk about next?
Talk about Boris Becker.
Do you know what? Yes, let's talk about Becker. I'm a great fan of Boris Becker, and I really missed not hearing his immaculate, wonderful commentary from Wimbledon the past 2 weeks.
Could he not have done it from prison?
You would think that now, wouldn't you, with all the Zoom calls? And, of course, prisons are really cushy now, aren't they? They can do anything they want. But here we are, headline in not only The Sun, but The Mirror as well. Becker gets a cushy break. Cons, favouritism, fury. He's now being allowed to spark outrage among his fellow inmates by landing a cushy job in jail. Do you know what the cushy job is?
What?
Teaching sports science to other prisoners at HMP Huntercombe.
Being at home during the pandemic was probably, very good. We have our home comforts and whatever, but it's as close to jail as I would like to experience, and it was not good. It was not good. So, you had your own couch.
I've got rose-tinted glasses now, looking back. I hated it at the time, homeschooling my kids. But having my husband working from home and the children around and the sun was shining, my memories sort of faded out, all the fear and the...
But look, why? But there's another part.
You learn that it's true that when people say, I married you for life, but not for lunch, that's true, isn't it?
But why? Why is he in jail? Should he really be in prison? We've got, we're talking about the Telford.
He obviously committed crimes, and these were corporate crimes and whatever. But is he a danger to society?
No, he's not.
So therefore, you could find other ways of punishing him.
And nor a danger to himself either, I would argue, as well.
Well,
so
he's being made an example of, isn't he?
Yeah, but that's not fair.
Well,
yeah, what he did was conceal his assets, but there are plenty of people who do that. But no, I was thinking of him, funny enough, because the first day I ever spent at Wimbledon was back in 1976 when he won.
It wasn't 76.
It was 76.
No, when Boris Becker won.
Boris Becker?
No, he wasn't, no.
When was it then?
It was 86.
Yeah. That's right. And, as far as I was concerned, it was a great moment, And
well, it was.
Yeah.
He was 17 years old.
That's right. 86.
You were a fan, obviously, Claire.
Huge fan.
Yeah.
Huge fan. And I'm deeply sorry to see him banged up.
Okay.
Just to say, had quite a few emails, Claire, supporting your views on those marches from GB News viewers and listeners this morning. Interesting to get
Thank
a
you.
little
Lovely
bit of
to
perspective
hear.
on that. Bit of a mixed bag, but most.
I do have to say, you'll have a lot of emails not supporting your views as well. Just my own personal experience on those sort of things. But that's what it's all about. Different opinions.
It is.
Debated and
mercifully, you never read out what people say about me, and I'm grateful to you.
Thank you very much. Right, it is 14 minutes now before 9 o'clock. We thank you to Claire and David. Coming up next, Britain is throwing away nearly 100 billion pieces of plastic a year. Is it your fault or is it their fault for making it in the first place? Anthea Turner, the broadcaster, has been to a recycling factory. She's got a lot to tell. She'll open your eyes on this after this short break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
We started talking about recycling today. Daily Mirror, big splash front page today, an exclusive for them, and a Mirror investigation. And they're saying, you put it in the recycling bin, you think you've done your bit, it's dumped abroad, in this case, Turkey, and you know what? They burn your recycling, right? So why the heck are we doing it? Let's go to the broadcaster, Anthea Turner, who, unlike the rest of us, researched this and went out to a recycling factory. And Anthea, you told me what you saw, and what you told me shocked me. What did you see there? Good morning to you.
Good morning. You see, Eamonn and I, by the way, just to fill you in here, are slightly obsessed with rubbish.
Right.
Dirt, rubbish and bins. And so we have lots of chats about this. And I rang you up when I got back because what shocked me and has absolutely changed me is we put things into the recycling bin without really thinking. And how many of us put something like a creme fraiche pot in and we don't wash it out? And then what...
I say something, because people want to do the right thing. Right?
Yeah.
People think, right, I've done my bit, I've put the plastic in the right bin. What I often think about the washing out business is, first of all, I think it's going somewhere that will take care of that, which it's not, you're going to tell me. But secondly, I think I'm wasting water. Water is a very... You don't? Do you not think water's really precious?
Well, yeah, but, you know, you can rinse out your thing thoroughly.
What, you're using gallons and gallons of water throughout the day, rinsing stuff out. I think they shouldn't be allowed to make it in the first place. That's my point. But however, sorry, I interrupted.
Well, what happened to me was I went to, and actually anybody can do this, you can go to your local recycling plant. A lot of people do tours. Most of them will allow people, it's free of charge, and you go around and it will change you. What happens is you see the people. We think it's a whole load of machines doing the job,
Robots.
sorting everything out. No, it's not. There are machines obviously there, but there are people, and a lot of women actually at board level and on the shop floor who are sorting out our rubbish. So they are going, they've got the marigolds on. Actually, they're not marigolds, they're a much thicker version of them. But they are there on these belts picking out all the rubbish and the things that shouldn't have gone in the recycling in the first place.
Because your yogurt pot has not been washed out.
And the stench, because people haven't actually been circumspect with what they've put into their recycling. And we haven't thought about it. And we haven't read the labels, of which all the things are labelled. We assume it can be recycled. A lot of the things can never be recycled. They're not worth recycling. And a lot of the things that we put in are dirty. And who thinks that somebody wants to blow their nose and stick a tissue in?
People do that.
Of course they do, absolutely. Terrible things. Nappies go in.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be going in.
So talk us through some of the bits you've got on the desk here and what people are sort of going wrong with. For example, could that wine bottle be recycled with the lid on?
No. So you take lids off.
Oh, well, you see, now it just gets ridiculous. I wouldn't have known that.
I knew that.
Something like this. So this is... There was pork chops in this.
Yeah.
And we think, oh, right, so you take the pork chops out, you cook them, and you chuck the whole lot in the recycling. No, actually, only the bottom bit can be recycled. So
Right,
you take all
Anthea,
this
here's
off.
what I'm going to say. You're very good and you're better than me, but I just think that is not my responsibility. There should be companies, bodies, authorities, government, regulation, whatever, that says that can only be made in one way, which is totally recyclable.
But this is the way it's made. None of these little tiny bits of plastic and things like cling film and that, none of those can be recycled. But we have to take some responsibility. Greenpeace have just done this survey and they got 100,000 homes, families, to write down for 1 week in May how much they buy and get rid of single-use plastic. And they've come up with a figure. A year, the UK, we buy and dispose of, some way, 100 billion pieces of single-use plastic. Can you imagine what that is? So every
But
week...
my point is it shouldn't be made in the first place.
Well, it shouldn't be made in the first place, and this is where we have to start lobbying. But we are in control of this because we are the customer. As soon as we stop buying the broccoli that's got a little bit of plastic over the top and we buy the loose broccoli, then the supermarkets will take notice. At the moment, they're not. They're still not.
Anthea, one way I was told when I did some research on this story previously was that as customers, you could go to the checkout in a supermarket and unwrap every single product out of its single-use plastic and leave it on the till for the supermarket to deal with. And if every single customer did that,
They'd
it would
get the
send a
message.
very strong message that...
But the other message is you went out, was it the
I went
sea
to
or the...
Mumbai.
Right, tell us what you saw.
Mumbai, obviously a huge city. I think it's a population of about 80 million there, and it's got something like 70 beaches, all of them unswimmable, and all of the fish have been killed off due to plastics and toxins in the sea, killing off turtles, dolphins, whatever. The fishing community obliterated. It's a huge...
But we're only able to recycle, of that huge amount of plastic, we're only recycling 12%. And that's not enough.
Yeah.
Now, one of the reasons we can make it easier for people to recycle, for these big plants to recycle, is actually doing our little bit. But we should be doing our bit. We should be helping.
I think
it
people
isn't
do
somebody
do
else's
their bit.
problem.
I do. Do you see, for instance, you just unwrap the pork and you've got a little bit of tissue. No, do you see the little bit of paper
Oh, yeah,
there?
yeah.
Right. So the paper, and you think, well, that's paper, we'll put that in a recycling bin. But I see that blood stain on it, right, from the meat.
Yeah.
That would make that unrecyclable?
That, because it's actually got a plastic in, because not all plastics, there are thousands of different types of plastics, and that's why that can't be recycled.
So what
that
am I...
can't be recycled.
No, I'm not a scientist. I don't know that.
Yeah.
But Anthea, do you find that... go on.
If you go onto your council website, this is my council website, it's got a little that. Yeah. And that, but we don't listen, we don't look. And we think we're in a rush.
It doesn't matter.
We're in a rush.
Well, they're selling us a lie. They're selling us a lie. Our recycling is dumped abroad and then burnt abroad.
That's awful.
Well, Boris did say that recycling didn't work. He didn't actually completely mean that, because recycling does work. But what we have to do is we have to reduce our use of single-use plastic in the first place.
Okay.
And if we are using, as a household, average person in the UK, we're using 70 pieces a week. 70 pieces a week. Now, that's something that we can keep in our head and we think, right, OK, I can halve that. I've got to work on halving that.
Yeah.
See, I do think of those people, mostly women, as you say, on the conveyor belt, cleaning up our mess.
Yeah.
And I do think when I've got the yogurt pot and whatever, I do think, I've got to wash this blooming thing. But there may be a bit left on it or whatever, which would make it ineligible. But I also think now, it's the summer, there are water shortages, there'll be hose pipe bans and things. So while Isabel's busy wasting water on recycling, just loving it, filling a bath up to wash a blooming yogurt pot.
How much water do you need to wash a yogurt pot? Just eat your yogurt pot properly. Get your spoon in there, clean out all the muck, don't leave any waste, and use a tiny bit of water to wash out.
How many yogurts you eat during the day. What? I might eat a lot of yogurt during the day. You don't know. My probiotics might be going wild there.
It's all about the gut.
It's all about the gut.
It's all about the gut.
But your gut instinct is this is not right.
Anthea, what's your gut instinct on all of this? Do you leave totally depressed now that you've seen recycling, or do you think, look, there is hope, or we can make an improvement, or somebody could do something in authority that would really help this, because this just cannot go on?
I don't feel depressed about it at all. I feel that we can do something. I think we're all part of this problem, and we all have to play our part to make recycling easier for the recycling companies and for the people who are working there. And, you know, I started talking about this in 1992. I did a piece on Blue Peter about this. So I think we are a long way down the line, but we can do more. But we have to play our part. It's not somebody else's problem. It's actually our problem.
Anthea Turner, thank you for not tippy-toeing about. I mean, thank you for getting straight to the point on that. Love you lots. Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, you feel my pain, Anthea. I know you used to do this with Eamonn back in the day.
Used to do it. This was in the heyday of breakfast television.
Exactly.
This is when we were both famous.
We were rocking and rolling.
Right, on that note, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be straight back after this with more on the big day in the Tory leadership contest. See you after the weather.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update. Plenty of sunshine around for the next couple of days. Not as hot as the last few days, but we could see temperatures rising further as we head into the weekend. High pressure has been dominating, one area pushing away, but another one moving back in. But it's moving back in behind this cold front that's been drifting south, and that will introduce slightly cooler conditions for most of us today. It's a little fresher out there this morning, still very warm and humid in the south. But further north, we've got a fairly brisk wind continuing to bring some showers over the Highlands and the Northern Isles and the Western Isles. Maybe one or two showers getting into southwest Scotland during the day too. But for most places, dry and fine after the early cloud tending to break up across the south. Here, still pretty warm, 27, 28 Celsius, but not the 30 or more we've seen over recent days. And further north, generally fresher, more comfortable conditions, less humid, temperatures in the high teens, low 20s. Through this evening, we'll see a bit more cloud spilling into northwest England and Northern Ireland, with maybe one or two showers here. We'll keep some showers in the far north of Scotland as well, but further south it does stay dry. It'll be a cooler night again. Still temperatures staying in the teens, but lower than the night just gone. Into Thursday, and it's a fine summer's day across southern England, South Wales, plenty of sunshine. Further north, a bit more cloud to come tomorrow over particularly northwest England, western Scotland and Northern Ireland, where there will be some outbreaks of rain at times. Much of eastern Scotland and to the east of the Pennines staying dry and bright. Plenty of sunshine, as I say, in the south, and we've lost the heat, so temperatures, although potentially getting into the high 20s across the southeast, mostly high teens, low 20s. So close to average for the time of year, and it will feel that much fresher than the past few days. However, the heat is expected to build again through this weekend, and the Met Office do have extreme heat warning in place covering both Sunday and Monday.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
The race for number 10 is down to 8 candidates ahead of the first ballot today.
Hello, very good morning to you. It's just after 9 o'clock. You're tuned into GB News on this Wednesday, the 13th of December. Just 13th of July. Doesn't even feel like December. Anyway, so this is the breakfast show, which sort of disorientates you in various ways. Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Bleak midwinter.
In the bleak midwinter. Why would I say December?
No, it's made me laugh. Anyway, here's what's leading on news this morning. The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and the former Chancellor Rishi Sunak lead the race to become the next leader of the Conservative Party and the future Prime Minister. 8 candidates remain ahead of the first ballot today.
The UK economy has returned to a period of growth after 2 months of contraction, according to new GDP numbers released in the past hour. The figures show growth across all major areas and exceed economists' expectations.
The Met Office has issued an extreme heat warning as temperatures rise across the UK. Meteorologists have predicted that this weekend could see the hottest day ever on record, with temperatures reaching over 40 degrees.
And Heathrow Airport has asked airlines to stop selling tickets over the summer as it struggles to keep up with demand. It comes as the airport announces it will cap the amount of passengers that can fly through its terminals. And then what happens if it falls below their target or their cap? So say people say, oh, stuff that, we're not going there, and they're down 50,000 a day. Do they then say sell, sell, sell?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But anyway, it is bliss when you go to an airport and there's nobody there.
Yeah, well, that's not what they want, to be fair.
It happens around lunchtime.
Does it?
Yeah.
There's a lull. There's no flights, maybe.
Yeah, people go out and then people come back later on, and it's a bit of a lull around lunchtime sometimes.
I quite like flying at lunchtime. I don't like getting up early to fly, and I don't like arriving late. I think it's the perfect time.
And I don't like flying during the summer because of children.
Right.
Yeah. No, but they are.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Crying, noise, kicking the back of your seat.
Welcome to my life.
Parents that talk to them too loud when they should just dose them with Calpol, you know.
Yeah, I do.
They should dose them with Calpol until they're 16.
Okay.
Really. Just keep them quiet.
I'll remember that.
No.
Those are Eamonn's views. Let us know your views this morning on any of the topics we're discussing. GB Views at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at GB News.
And we're on the lookout, since it's December, for a people's champion. If you know someone in your area who's just really nice, you know, a neighbour or someone who bothers, or community worker, or, you know, someone who maybe runs a food bank. I think those are always good people.
Yes.
People who want to, you know, do the food banks and then distribute the stuff as well. You can nominate them by emailing us. You put the subject heading, Breakfast People's Champion, and we will do the rest. Thank you.
So our top story today, the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and the former Chancellor Rishi Sunak, plus the former Defence Secretary Penny Mordaunt are in the lead for the Conservative leadership contest as Tory MPs prepare to vote in the first ballot this afternoon.
OK, so what have we got? We've got 8 candidates remaining today. Sajid Javid, Grant Shapps and Raymond Christie dropped out yesterday.
Well, candidates that secure at least 30 votes will proceed to the next round tomorrow, when the final 2 will then be chosen.
I just think he is the most capable candidate in this group of 8. He has been, for me, a rising star in the Conservative Party for several years. I remember first seeing him long before he was Foreign Secretary, and he was put out for the usual media round in the morning. And I can remember listening to him and watching him and thinking, this guy is really good. I mean, how many more have they got like this hidden away? And I've been a fan ever since, even with the trauma that he went through with his wife's family and his wealth, etc., etc. It didn't interrupt anything that I thought about him at all. I just think the bookies have got it dead right. They always do, don't they? Rishi Sunak is going to be the leader, in my opinion.
Interesting. Do you think that then he'll be able to cut through in the red wall in the way that Boris Johnson did? Because as so many people have been commentating, he's really that establishment figure, safe pair of hands, experienced cabinet member, very, very clever. But does he necessarily relate to people who have voted Conservative for the first time in their lives and aren't really sure if they want to do that again in the future?
Yes, I do. I think he comes over as a very, very impressive politician, very impressive. I can see him being very prominent on the world stage, actually, and being a popular politician around the world. I cannot see him having any problem. I think he is popular in the Shires and in all areas of Britain. And I really don't have any doubts that he is going to, come across to people who don't know him very well. He's going to come across as, for me, twice as good as Boris, maybe even more.
Peter, do you have a reserve choice? Do you have a reserve candidate? If it wasn't Sunak, would there be someone else who wouldn't displease you?
Well, it would have been Penny Mordaunt or Mr. Tugendhat, because I really admire their military background, and it's the same with Ben Wallace, who sadly is not running. I'm very impressed by the military background, the service to the country, the way that they just come across as very, very strong, very determined, and not in any way flippant or too relaxed or anything like that. They know there's a job to be done. They want to get in there and do it, and I think it's the same with Rishi Sunak.
We were delighted to speak to Peter Vaughan there. Peter is a GB News viewer and listener and a former teacher. So there he is. He is backing Rishi Sunak for the job. And we've had a number of you throughout the programme today, and that's what we want to do. We want to reflect what you think. And indeed, we want to reflect your jobs as well, because as we hear, and I think many people will be very disappointed if it isn't the record temperatures that are being predicted into the weekend. You'll be disappointed.
No, I don't want 40 degrees.
Couldn't care less.
Oh, my house is so hot.
That's not my fault. It's not my fault, is it?
Just saying, lots of people will be disappointed if it doesn't. Lots of people will be delighted if it doesn't.
Do what the Continentals do. Pull your blinds down.
I do. It's like a vampire house already.
Like a vampire house. That's what you want to do. And then get somebody to blow on you.
Perfect. Or a fan.
Or a fan.
Right, yeah, so we're talking about hot jobs. Maybe you're one of the people out there enduring this heat. I had a builder yesterday sweltering outside for me all day. It's tough work outside.
Where could it be tougher? In a kitchen. It could be no tougher in a kitchen. Heat, hot, sweat, food, all the thing. Let's go to Alice Porter, who is doing just that. Well, not that she's doing it, but she's in. Now, tell me the kitchen and who's this guy and is he sweating?
Hello there, good morning. Yes, I'm here at a wonderful Indian restaurant called Spice Master, which is in Tilehurst. And I have to say, it may be 9:10, but I am sweating already. The kitchen has very much retained its heat from the meals last night. I'm joined by the owner, Mo. Mo, thanks for letting me come in the kitchen. I mean, this is warm already. I mean, how much hotter is it going to get later?
Later on, it would be, you're looking at what, 30, 32, 35 in here. Sometimes even more. Yeah, last week was so hot.
And what do you do to sort of protect your employees? Because if they're here chopping and working, they've got steam coming up in their face. I mean, that 30 degrees must feel even hotter when you've got all the physical activity that comes with a kitchen.
Yeah, it's true. But, you know, when they're working, when customers is at the front house, they can't really do anything about it. But when they got a bit of time, they go outside, they'll try to go and relax a bit more, you know?
Really, really difficult to sort of manage. I mean, we've got behind this, and we've got some doors so people can go outside and hopefully try and cool off.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's what they always try. And there is a park, as you've been seeing. Sometimes they go when it's not busy. They go and chill out there, you know. So because it's in the kitchen, it's too hot.
Now, there'll be some businesses this week who will be very excited about the temperatures coming up. I think if you sell ice creams, you're going to make a fortune perhaps this weekend. But you were saying to me earlier that actually these temperatures actually is bad for business.
It's really bad for the Indian cuisine, I think, because always summertime is quiet anyway. But the way the temperature last week, we were so quiet. And also I have spoken with a few of my colleagues. Friends, they were saying they were in a restaurant as well. So literally, they said it's very, very quiet. So, you know, for the Indian restaurant, this is not the weather. People like to come out, you know, have a food and stuff like that, Indian food and stuff like that.
I mean, and roughly how many sort of, what sort of percentage are your bookings down? I mean, what sort of would you be expecting tonight?
We're looking at about also 35% of the people, they're not really coming in. So quite a lot of people are saying, like, do you know what? We'll just leave it for this week because it's too hot.
Well, listen, I live nearby, so I will come back. When the weather's cooled down, I will come back, because I have to say, the smell in here is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it may be hot, but the smell is fantastic of all these beautiful spices. So, Mo, look, thank you so much for letting me come into your kitchen first thing this morning. And I think it gives you a bit of a flavour there of the reality for so many people who are having to work in these very difficult conditions.
Very difficult, awful, awful. Could you do it, Alice? Do you actually think you could do it? Would it be bearable for you?
I'd give it a go, Eamonn. I'd give it a go. I think I'd have to make sure I take any makeup off, because I could see there'd be a health and safety issue with the makeup sort of sweating into the food, which may not go down very well. I'm not the flavour people want.
Not for you, Alice. You're too much of a lady. You are. Do you know the way they say men sweat and ladies glow? That's why I see as you. I couldn't imagine you having underarm problems or anything like that. No, I couldn't.
Honestly, all I'll say is if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. That's the best thing to do in that situation.
Alice Porter glowing in those surroundings. Respect to anybody working in a kitchen.
Absolutely.
And it just put me in the mood for a prawn puree.
I do love a curry.
I like the prawn puree in pancakes because they're like slightly sweet as well.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had that.
Well, have you not?
No.
Come with me, kid. I'll show you how to live.
All right, it's the Gaylord that's your favourite, isn't it?
The Gaylord is very good. I don't know what Gaylord means, but it's very good. What is a Gaylord? I may have met one or two in the time. Anyway, coming up, we'll be discussing the Tory leadership race in deadly seriousness with the Daily Mirror's deputy political editor, Ben Glaze. He should work in a kitchen, shouldn't he? What's your name, Ben Glaze? What do you do? I'm a cook. Ben Glaze? Oh, no, anyway. Back after this.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update. Plenty of sunshine around for the next couple of days. Not as hot as the last few days, but we could see temperatures rising further as we head into the weekend. High pressure has been dominating, one area pushing away, but another one moving back in. But it's moving back in behind this cold front that's been drifting south, and that will introduce slightly cooler conditions for most of us today. It's a little fresher out there this morning, still very warm and humid in the south. But further north, we've got a fairly brisk wind continuing to bring some showers over the Highlands and the Northern Isles and the Western Isles. Maybe one or two showers getting into southwest Scotland during the day too. But for most places, dry and fine after the early cloud tending to break up across the south. Here, still pretty warm, 27, 28 Celsius, but not the 30 or more we've seen over recent days. And further north, generally fresher, more comfortable conditions, less humid, temperatures in the high teens, low 20s. Through this evening, we'll see a bit more cloud spilling into northwest England and Northern Ireland, with maybe one or two showers here. We'll keep some showers in the far north of Scotland as well, but further south it does stay dry. It'll be a cooler night again. Still temperatures staying in the teens, but lower than the night just gone. Into Thursday, and it's a fine summer's day across southern England, South Wales, plenty of sunshine. Further north, a bit more cloud to come tomorrow over particularly northwest England, western Scotland and Northern Ireland, where there will be some outbreaks of rain at times. Much of eastern Scotland and to the east of the Pennines staying dry and bright. Plenty of sunshine, as I say, in the south, and we've lost the heat, so temperatures, although potentially getting into the high 20s across the southeast, mostly high teens, low 20s, so close to average for the time of year, and it will feel that much fresher than the past few days. However, the heat is expected to build again through this weekend, and the Met Office do have extreme heat warning in place covering both Sunday and Monday.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you. We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Listen, guys, thank you very much indeed. Inundated with your views on recycling. We're doing this, and we've been pointing out the Mirror, their front story today, talking about, you know, we do our best. Recycling, though, what happens with it? It's dumped abroad. In this particular case, it's incinerated in Turkey. And, I mean, at least, because you could put it in a power station or something here, at least get something out of it. But it's all just a con. What have you got there, Isabel, in terms of what
Carl
people are
says,
saying?
why did we have a whole campaign about plastic bags? If they're that bad for the environment, just stop making them.
Correct, that's what I say.
Jeff, in Australia, we get paid to recycle our plastic and glass bottles, 10 cents per item. There's no litter, and the kids get pocket money.
Excellent idea.
They do that in Holland as well.
When I was young, we used to get your lemonade bottles and whatever, and you got 5p or 10p back on those, and that's how you got your pocket money as well.
Yep.
So you'd go around the neighbours' houses and nick them out of their bins and things like that. Farah says, we're talking about people who have to work in the heat, and think of the smell as well. Our brilliant bin collectors were out yesterday. They were trying to do that ahead of the heat. Well done to them, says Faris. Ours was slightly ajar, and they refused to take it, so the system's broken. I mean, again, it depends how friendly you are with your bin operators, your bin collectors. Usually, I think if you're very pleasant to them, they'll forgive certain things. But then,
what, you think if you give them a smile and a bottle of wine at Christmas, they'll take your recycling and then dump it later?
You being a mediumly attractive woman, if you came to the door and the bin man right there, they'd appreciate that, wouldn't they?
Well, perhaps, but I, being a conscientious young woman, would not throw away things that weren't recyclable. I'd have done my homework.
No, that's not his point. His point was his bin lid wouldn't close.
Oh, sorry, I see what you're saying. Got you.
And then all those different colour bins around the country, why they just can't be the same colours everywhere? Some
Like
places.
the inhalers, it confuses you.
Well,
doesn't
it does confuse me. I mean, if you're, I don't know what they are. They'll be different in Manchester than they are in Birmingham, than they are in Belfast, than they are in Glasgow.
Do you know who's shining a light on this whole issue, though, today on the front pages when there's a lot of news around? Guess who? The Mirror.
Yes, and we've got the deputy editor here. He's a deputy political editor, but we're going to talk rubbish with him throughout the next few minutes, and that is Ben Glaze. Ben, what have you got to say? It's front page for you guys today. Good story.
Thank you. Yeah, that was our environment editor, Nadia Farouk. She headed out to Turkey to find out what happens to the waste, the recycling that we in Britain loyally sift. You know, we're all trying to fight climate change, do the best for our environments. We put it into the correct bins, you know, your plastics, your cardboard, your paper, your metals. And then apparently all gets taken off to Turkey and dumped or incinerated. And Nada found evidence of, you know, it's obviously British stuff. Like there are packets there that have got a pound sign on them, so it can only have come from the United Kingdom. Yeah. And it's disheartening, really, as, you know, someone who every Wednesday night sifts every recycling, sticks it out on the street up to the Thursday morning, to know that this is what happens to some of it.
Here's what I don't understand, Ben. You will know the political inside to all of this. Right, they say we're getting rid of diesel, we're getting rid of fossil fuels, we're getting rid of petrol, and they give a timeline on that, right? There's the political lead on that, the political intention, not a whimper of we're getting rid of plastic. It's all about plastic is your problem. It's not their problem. It's not the manufacturer's problems. My point being, and a lot of you reflecting this as well, if they just don't make it, it doesn't become our problem. It's, you know, I don't see why it is our problem. Why is there not the political will? Is the plastic lobby and the petroleum lobby on this one too great?
I think the government's tried to do something, you know, getting rid of single-use plastics, but you can still go to takeaways and, you know, get a plastic knife and fork with your kebab on a Friday night. There's just not, the impetus isn't there. And we think back to the Blue Planet when David Attenborough sort of brought it home, really. But that was 4 or 5 years ago now, and it seems to have fallen down the agenda. And the drive, the political will just doesn't seem to be there anymore because it's been overtaken by events, I suppose. Right,
well, speaking of events, let's talk then about the biggest story in town. First ballot this afternoon, the leadership contest. Obviously, the Mirror is a left-leaning paper, but I suppose from your point of view, you would have one of those 8 who you think would be easier to beat, perhaps, in any future general election. Who do you think would be the best candidate to beat from a left-leaning point of view?
I think probably Kemi Badenoch is one that, you know, she's very hard right. She sort of spearheaded these culture wars. She maybe will end up being the darling of the Tory activists, but I think it's unlikely that she will make it into that runoff of the final 2 because we're now down to 8 candidates and the voting starts at 1:30 this afternoon. It's 2 hours, the ballots are open, and we're expecting the results sometime just after 5 o'clock. And each candidate has to get at least 30 votes to proceed to the next round. If they all get 30, which they won't, the one with the fewest votes drops off.
And who do you predict won't be getting 30 today? Who do you think will be, you know, knocked out?
I think we need to look closely at Jeremy Hunt and Nadeem Zahawi as ones who might struggle to make the next round because they so far haven't secured the public backing of 30-odd MPs.
Does Zahawi surprise you? Because, you know, I know people that had laid money on him a long time ago, and he obviously fancied himself as PM with events that unfolded this week. Did he actually then shoot himself in the foot?
Yeah, I think last week was not his finest hour, and the logistics around sort of, yes, accepting the job as Chancellor and then immediately calling for the Prime Minister to go, I think a lot of people will have looked at that and thought he's not really got his ducks in a row. And like you say, he was tipped a while out as someone who might fancy a tilt at number 10. But when it came to it, I think he slightly messed up the actual planning of what he was doing.
What about the curse of the front-runner? Do you think that Ready for Rishi might well be in the doldrums before long?
It's all a bit too slick, the Rishi campaign, isn't it? You know, we've known this has been happening for months, that he's been planning it in the background, ready to challenge Boris Johnson. And then when he resigned last Tuesday evening, that sort of kick-started, really, his campaign. I think he will make that final 2, the runoff. But the problem is when he gets to the membership, and remember it's 120,000 perhaps Tory party members who'll vote for who is our Prime Minister. They get to decide. Yeah. They're not huge fans of his, you know, the tax-raising Chancellor. Yeah,
but we were talking to a commentator earlier who said that the membership are fans of women. They want to see women. Now, whether they want to see a reincarnation of Margaret Thatcher or somebody more modern, we don't know. So if they do, from the Mirror's point of view, I don't know if Liz Truss is your dream or your nightmare. Your dream because she'll provide you with endless opportunities to attack the Conservatives and endless copy, or what? What do you think of her?
I think Liz Truss is a journalist's dream, whether from the Mirror or somewhere else. We think back a few years ago, her talking about pork markets and cheese markets, whichever paper you work for, that was a bit of a gift. And yes, if she did become Prime Minister, I think we could look forward to lots more of those episodes.
Well, let's not forget, we were talking about a clip yesterday, weren't we, of Liz Truss back in the day calling for the abolition of the monarchy, which would be an interesting position for a future Prime Minister to hold. As you say, lots of them might have skeletons in their cupboard, who knows? So the dark horse in all of this, perhaps Penny Mordaunt, perhaps might come forward into the final two, who knows?
Yeah, Penny Mordaunt, she's done well so far, but she's mainly stayed under the radar. So when you look at the polls of who the Conservative members would like as their leader, she comes first or second in the various surveys that have taken place. If she manages to get through to that final two, and I think it will be 2 of 3 of Rishi Sunak, Penny Mordaunt and Liz Truss, then, yeah, she would be able to defeat, according to the polls, Rishi Sunak in that runoff.
Well, it's going to be an interesting day today, and it'll all happen from 1:30 this afternoon, so keep tuned here to GB News. So, Ben, what do you think? Who do you think are going to make those two that will go through?
If I was putting money on it, I'd say Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, because even this morning, a couple of hardcore Brexiteers have rode in behind Liz Truss, who, lest we forget, was a Remain supporter back in 2016. Yet she does seem to have
Who's come out for Liz Truss this morning?
Mark Francois, who's the chairman of the European Research Group, the Tory sort of hard-right Brexiteer faction, and Ian Duncan-Smith as well, a former leader.
Well, Steve Barclay's come out for Rishi Sunak this morning. Don't forget, he was Brexit minister and pretty hard Brexiteer as well. It's all to play for. That's going to be the first ballot at 1:30. We've got PMQs as well at midday, which will be very interesting given the last week's events. Ben Glaze from the Mirror. Really good to get your thoughts this morning. Thanks for joining us. That's it from us.
Really good to have you with us.
We'll be back tomorrow, but you're off, aren't you?
No, I'm doing a royal visit to the Channel Islands.
So glorious.
Yes, I'm waving to people on the Channel Islands for a couple of days. So
enjoy. I hope your flight takes off without too many problems.
Indeed.
I'll be back from 6 tomorrow. Up next, it's Tom Harwood with The Briefing.
Good morning, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update. Plenty of sunshine around for the next couple of days. Not as hot as the last few days, but we could see temperatures rising further as we head into the weekend. High pressure has been dominating, one area pushing away, but another one moving back in. But it's moving back in behind this cold front that's been drifting south, and that will introduce slightly cooler conditions for most of us today. It's a little fresher out there this morning, still very warm and humid in the south. But further north, we've got a fairly brisk wind continuing to bring some showers over the Highlands and the Northern Isles and the Western Isles. Maybe 1 or 2 showers getting into southwest Scotland during the day too. But for most places, dry and fine after the early cloud tending to break up across the south. Here, still pretty warm, 27, 28 Celsius, but not the 30 or more we've seen over recent days. And further north, generally fresher, more comfortable conditions, less humid, temperatures in the high teens, low 20s. Through this evening, we'll see a bit more cloud spilling into northwest England and Northern Ireland, with maybe 1 or 2 showers here. We'll keep some showers in the far north of Scotland as well, but further south it does stay dry. It'll be a cooler night again. Still temperatures staying in the teens, but lower than the night just gone. Into Thursday, and it's a fine summer's day across southern England, South Wales, plenty of sunshine. Further north, a bit more cloud to come tomorrow over particularly northwest England, western Scotland and Northern Ireland, where there will be some outbreaks of rain at times. Much of eastern Scotland and to the east of the Pennines staying dry and bright. Plenty of sunshine, as I say, in the south, and we've lost the heat, so temperatures, although potentially getting into the high 20s across the southeast, mostly high teens, low 20s. So close to average for the time of year, and it will feel that much fresher than the past few days. However, the heat is expected to build again through this weekend. The Met Office do have extreme heat warning in place covering both Sunday and Monday.